Is everybody in their seat? Okay. Now, now that you're in your seat, maybe I could get you to stop talking. Think that we could do that? All right. Shame on me last night. We did lose, since the last annual town meeting, one very fine town meeting member, and that's Paul Buchanan. And I would like you all to stand for a moment of silence. Paul was a town meeting member from 1985 to 2001. He was also a library trustee for 16 years. And most of you knew him, or you certainly knew him from Our Town, a show on which I appeared many times over the last decade. And he was just, absolutely wonderful human being. So a moment of silence in memory of Paul Buchanan. You may be seated. There are going to be two or three brief announcements. One is, as promised from Mr. Pavlicek, Chairman of the Warrant Committee, with what little extra he got at the last moment. This yellow sheet is being passed out, or it's out back. They will also be announced as we come to the articles. While you wouldn't necessarily figure it out, there is an extra little $16,000 there that Warrant Committee is working on coming up with a recommendation. If you grab it first, maybe you'll be lucky. I didn't say that, Glenn. Now, is Representative Timilty arrived? Oh, Representative Timilty is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Ladies and gentlemen, Walter Timilty, Precinct 2. First of all, ladies and gentlemen, my apologies for not being with you last night. We actually completed the House version of the budget at about 10 of 11 last night. But I think I bring with some good news for all of us. Fiscal year 01, our Chapter 70 educational aid from the state to the town of Milton was $3,574,000, roughly. House 1, the governor's proposed, as the Warrant Committee is well aware, $3,817,352. The budget that House Ways and Means proposed a month ago was extremely low in terms of its aid to Milton through Chapter 70, which was $3,610,000 roughly. I and several of my colleagues sponsored an amendment called the Linsky Amendment, which would bring all towns up to the governor's proposed figures. Last night at about 11:15, we passed that overwhelmingly to bring Milton's figures for educational aid up to $3,817,353, which is what the Warrant Committee had based their figures on during the months of arduous work that they put in and do so well on the budget. So that's overall, it's an increase of $225,000 in Milton's Chapter 70 aid in the House budget from fiscal year 01, and it's an increase over the initial House Ways and Means budget of $210,000. I could not have done this, obviously, without Speaker Finneran. He was instrumental, and Shirley Owens-Hicks, our former House Education Chair. And as always, I know on the Senate side that Senator Joyce is working extremely hard on the Senate budget, which will come out roughly in the beginning of June. So with that, I just wanted to bring that news along. I know it was a hot topic last night. I had various discussions with Selectman Mullen, Selectman McCarthy, and Glenn Pavlicek, and of course our chairman of the school committee, Chris Eubank, yesterday. But with that, I just wanted to let you know about it. I know it was a hot topic last night, and obviously it does not solve all our problems by any means, but it is a step in the right direction to match up what the Warrant Committee had rightly made their projections on. So with that, I thank you, Mr. Moderator, and good night.
Thank you, Representative Timilty. Now, there's Dr. O'Neill, our superintendent of schools, will be recognized to make an announcement. It's not directly involved in any particular article that is before the town meeting this year, but if you recall, some of you will, last year's struggles and the continuing work of the school building committee. The school committee wants to be sure that as soon as possible information as to developments is out there so that everything is known by everyone, and that there's candor and good communication. So, Dr. O'Neill, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to make an announcement of great importance to the future of our town. First, let me give you some background. More than 2 years ago, when the plans for our major school building project were coming together, a small group of interested citizens began seeking private support for that project. This dedicated and hardworking team includes Susan Cannon, then chairman of the Milton School Committee, Jeffrey Cruikshank, then a member of the School Building Committee and a school committee member, and Natalie Albers, a longtime town meeting member and a school supporter with contacts throughout the community. Our group has been meeting regularly since that time. Our goal has been to raise private dollars in support of specific enhancements for our school building project. We wanted to take advantage of the rare opportunity that the School Building Assistance Program provides to us. Simply put, the SBA will pay 90% of the cost of any reimbursable parts of our building project, so a single private dollar can be leveraged to create 9 additional state dollars. But there was one more criterion to direct our group's efforts. We wanted to secure enhancements for our school buildings that wouldn't cost the taxpayers any additional money. Warrant Committee Chairman Glenn Pavlicek worked with us and told us that when all principal and interest costs were figured in, we needed to raise not 10% of any enhancement, but 20% of the enhancement in order to hold the taxpayer harmless, which was our goal. That became our watchword. One will get you 4. Each private dollar we raised would generate 4 additional state dollars at absolutely no cost to the taxpayers, with the exception of the cost of heating, lighting, and cleaning any new spaces that might be created. We drew up a list of hoped-for capital enhancements at every level of the school system: elementary schools, middle school, and high school. At the top of our list was space for full-day kindergarten. This was in the original building plans, but was dropped from our building program during the round of cost-cutting that occurred last spring. Our ongoing conversations with the SBA since then have confirmed the urgency to find a way to build for full-day kindergarten. The SBA told us that virtually all the elementary school plans coming in from surrounding towns included full-day K. They strongly advised us to include similar plans in our building project. They reminded us that the State Department of Education had identified the implementation of full-day kindergarten statewide as a priority. And finally, they reminded us that the SBA would be unlikely to find additional funds for school buildings in Milton for at least 10 years. It was now or never. Let me reiterate, our goal in this case was simply to create the space necessary to allow our kindergarten children to stay in their assigned schools for the entire school day. Because the second half day of kindergarten would or will continue to be on a full-day basis as it is today through our Exciting Kids program, no new teachers would be needed. The cost of the extra space for full-day kindergarten is $2.5 million. Using our 20% rule, we knew we had to raise $500,000. Remember, 1 will get you 4. I'm extremely happy to be able to announce tonight that in April, the Cunningham Foundation made a pledge of $150,000 toward full-day kindergarten space, contingent on us raising the remaining $350,000. Most of us know the Cunningham Foundation through their support of the Cunningham Pool and Cunningham Hall. They are priceless resources for those of us in Milton. Some of us know that the Cunningham family donated the land upon which the Mary A. Cunningham School was built in 1934. We are extremely fortunate to have this tradition of wise and informed generosity alive and well in Milton today. I would like to thank the trustees of the Cunningham Foundation for their vote of confidence in our school building project. But the good news doesn't stop there. We have also been in conversations with another benefactor. This benefactor also has been extremely generous to Milton, and particularly to Milton's public schools. I am referring, of course, to the Copeland Foundation. The Copelands have made countless gifts to worthy causes over the years. Many of you are aware of their gifts in light of the, I'll take a drink. Many of you are aware of their gift of lights that now allows us to have games under the lights at Brooks Field. The Copelands have made many, many other critical donations over the years in support of our schools. Many of their donations have been anonymous. The Copeland Foundation gives from the heart. Someone recently described it that way to me. And over the years, they've made an enormous difference to public education in Milton. That tradition continues today. And I'm pleased to announce that last Wednesday, May 2nd, I received a letter from the Copeland Foundation detailing a series of gifts that I would like to describe to you tonight. These gifts are to our public schools, but by extension, these gifts are for our entire town. The Copelands made it clear that they wanted to benefit education system-wide, K through 12. System-wide, they have agreed to contribute toward beautification and landscaping at each of our buildings. This will help us be good neighbors, and it will make our school properties even more attractive than they would have been otherwise. Also system-wide, they have agreed to support the acquisition of musical instruments and equipment. Now, the Copelands would prefer that we not attach dollar amounts to each of these gifts, and I will respect that preference. But I have asked and I've received their permission to give this one illustration. In our current and very tight school building budget, we have about $100,000 to buy musical instruments. When you consider that a new baby grand piano would cost about $40,000, you can see how tight that budget line is. In fact, according to our architects, it would actually cost about $1.45 million to equip our music programs adequately. So the gap between what we have and what we need is enormous, $1.35 million. The Copelands have agreed to close that gap. Their donation of $270,000 for this purpose alone, which liberates 4 times as much money from the state, will absolutely transform music education in Milton. Instead of $100,000 for musical equipment and instruments, we now have $1.45 million for musical equipment and instruments. But I'm not done yet.
No, you're not. I know that.
Neither are the Copelands. At the elementary level, the Copelands have agreed to meet the creative challenge posed to us by the Cunninghams. Through the combined generosity of the Copeland and the Cunningham Foundations, we have our full-day kindergarten space. Still not done. At the middle school, the Copelands have agreed to pay the town's share of a language lab. This will allow us to have our middle school language program, which is already a leader in the nation, even more outstanding. We don't currently have a language lab anywhere in the town, and this is the week when students are traveling all over the place taking those AP exams. So now we will have a language lab at the middle school, a very generous gift. They have also agreed to make a substantial investment in the sound system, the rigging, and the lighting in the new middle school auditorium, which is actually in this room. The middle school, you remember, is moving to this site, so this will be the middle school auditorium. They have also agreed to replace the worn-out seats you're sitting in. We'll make sure they have nice seats for the Warren Committee and the Board of Selectmen, too. The result at the middle school will be a state-of-the-art theater unlike anything we have ever had in Milton before. This is truly exciting. These are wonderful and amazing gifts to Milton. But in one sense, I've saved the best for last, and that's the high school. The Copelands have done some truly extraordinary things for the high school. They have agreed to create a second state-of-the-art auditorium at the Guile Road site. It too will have enhanced sound, lighting, and rigging systems. They have agreed to add 200 additional seats to our high school auditorium, increasing its capacity to 800 seats and making it much more flexible and much more useful. They have also agreed to pay for a science observatory. This will be built into the top floor of our new high school. Awesome. The observatory will enhance our science curriculum, and it will provide a wonderful resource for our entire town. Last, and certainly not least, I am thrilled to announce a gift that will physically be a part of our high school and will be closely integrated with our high school programs, but will be an extraordinary resource for the entire town. The Copelands have agreed to pay for a field house. And what a field house it will be. Let me just tell you a little bit about it. Our plans for the high school included a large gym and a small gym, locker rooms, and some modest additional resources. What we will have now, as a result of the Copeland's generosity, is nothing short of spectacular, and we'll have no excuse for working out, I'll tell you that. They have worked closely with our athletic department to design the program elements within the building. And they will include, among other things, a 4-lane, 1/11 of a mile indoor track, 3 full-sized basketball courts, which can be used for other indoor sports such as tennis and golf, a press box and an observation gallery, an enhanced lighting and sound system, including video capabilities, a portable stage, we can have theater in the round, a cover to protect the wood floor, a climbing wall, as in Project Adventure activities, separate weight room and aerobic room, an astounding list of specific equipment purchases, ranging from wrestling mats to batting cages to portable bleachers to whirlpool machines to scoreboards to portable goals. And their generosity extends outside this wonderful new facility as well. They will pay for artificial turf on Brooks Field, as well as for specialized equipment to maintain this overworked turf, helping us with the field problem we always are challenged with. They will also pay for a new exterior storage facility to serve our athletic program, and this will eliminate the current storage trailers. They will pay for a new concession stand at Brooks Field, with many of the enhancements that our current facility does not have. So all told, the Copeland's gift exceeds $5 million. Now, this $5 million in gifts from the Copelands will leverage to something like $11 million when the reimbursable and the non-reimbursable portions are figured in. That's $11 million to do things in Milton that could never have been done otherwise. I would like to thank the Copelands, truly thank them for their extraordinary generosity to the people of Milton, to the school children, and to the taxpayers of Milton. They have made thoughtful and powerful interventions at every level of our school system. They have created new facilities which will truly become the very heart of our community. We are committed to working with the Park Department and other town departments to make sure that we maximize the availability and the usefulness of these new resources, and especially the field house, for every citizen in Milton. Both the Cunningham and the Copeland Foundations have asked that we refrain from publicity and fanfare and celebrations. They give from the heart and don't seek recognition. Nevertheless, I hope the town meeting will join me once again in thanking them for their very generous and far-sighted gifts to the Milton residents, for both the Cunninghams and the Copelands. Just two more brief comments need to be made, Mr. Moderator. First, these gifts must be accepted by the town, which according to prior warrant articles approved by town meeting is the responsibility of the Board of Selectmen. Once approved, they will be administered and implemented by the School Building Committee. Eventually, a future town meeting will be asked to raise the bond authorization limit by a specified amount to reflect these gifts. Again, there will be no additional costs to the taxpayers, beyond the cost of heating and lighting approximately a dozen additional elementary and middle school rooms. My second and final point, Mr. Moderator, is that I and my small group are continuing in our fundraising efforts. We hope and expect to have more good news in the near future, and we will bring it to town meeting as soon as possible. Thank you for giving me this time in a very crowded town meeting agenda, Mr. Moderator, and town meeting members. I truly appreciate your time and your attention, and especially your enthusiasm. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. O'Neill. Mr. McCarthy is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. And on behalf of the Board of Selectmen, I would like to thank those cited by Dr. Grasso O'Neill for their very hard work, and to the very generous contributors who are going to give us all of this wonderful money to create these incredible resources. The Board of Selectmen has been following this process for some time and has been kept abreast of developments. Mary left one thing out. She cited several individuals who were instrumental in making this happen, but in her usual way, she forgot the most important person of all, because I assure you, this could not have been done without our Superintendent of Schools, Mary Grasso O'Neill.
Thank you. Well done. We were on Article 11. Article 11 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conducting a municipal audit for the fiscal year ending June 30, 2001, and further to see if the town will vote to authorize the committee appointed pursuant to Article 14 of the 1978 Annual March Town Meeting, the Town Audit Committee, to make recommendations to the Selectmen relative to the employment of a certified public accountant for the foregoing purpose and to act on anything relating thereto. Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is the town vote to appropriate the sum of $36,500 for the purpose set forth in this article. Does anyone wish to speak to Article 11? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is adopted. Article 12 is to see what
Excuse me,
sum of
Mr.
money the
Moderator.
town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2001, and for the several categories classified as employee benefits. And
Excuse
to
me,
act
Mr.
on
Moderator.
anything related. Pardon me?
Sorry. Excuse me?
Sir.
I just wanted, Jim McLeod, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 4. I didn't want to speak to Article 11, but I did want a point of clarification before we went forward regarding Article 10, if I could.
You want to do what?
Point of clarification for myself regarding Article 10.
You want to make a point of clarification, or do
I
you
want
wish
to
to
ask,
seek a clarification?
Seek, please.
Well, what is the question then?
Question is, after passing the debt override exclusion last night at town meeting, I just wanted to clarify whether that will be listed together with the operating override or separately if and when it comes to a ballot question for the town.
Okay, the answer to the question would rest with the Board of Selectmen, who I don't think have made those decisions yet, but rather than speak for them, Mr. McCarthy, can you answer the member's question?
Thank you.
I can, and thank you, Mr. Moderator. The way this stands is that Article 10, approved by this body last night, would be one separate question on any ballot that is now contemplated by the Board of Selectmen. If we decide to put it on the ballot, it would be a separate question. It would need to be, by law, a separate question because it is proposed to be a debt exclusion override. The operating override is of an entirely different type, and so they would indeed be entirely separate questions.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. The recommendation under Article 12 is that the town appropriate the amounts shown below in the following tabulation under the heading recommended. There, under contributory retirement, it's $2,599,001. Non-contributory pensions and annuities, $69,534. Group insurance, $4,841,470, for a grand total of $7,510,005. And that included in this appropriation for employee benefits are the sums of $72,430, representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, and $184,396, representing expenses attributable to the water enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated, to the tax recapitulation as sewer and water estimated receipts. Does any member wish to speak to Article 12? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 13 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to the Board of Selectmen for the purpose of conducting a post-employment health insurance actuarial valuation for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2001, and to act on anything relating thereto. Recommendation is no appropriation be made, but Mr. Pavlicek is recognized to give a brief explanation on this and how it relates to the following, Article 14, I believe. You're recognized.
Thank you. The comments in the warrant speak to it. This is what I mentioned earlier on last night. The issue of health insurance for our retirees, which gets charged to us annually through cherry sheet offsets, is one of a potential problem in the long run where we have this money is not being set aside in any fashion, and we just pay as we go. There are two articles dealing with this tonight. One is this actuarial study, and the second is a home rule petition to set up a fund. The Warrant Committee is recommending against funding the actuarial study at this time, the tightness of the budget being the principal reason, in favor of waiting to see if we're actually going to be allowed to go forward with the home rule petition. So we're deferring action on the first motion, supporting the second, and suggesting the home rule petition go forward to allow us to set up such a fund, at which point we can do an actuarial study to see how much money should be placed into it.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlicek. So the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 13 is that no appropriation be made. Does anyone wish to speak to that recommendation? All in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is adopted. Article 14 is to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court to enact legislation in substantially the following form, provided the General Court may reasonably vary the form and substance of the requested legislation within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. And the title, which is all I'm going to read, an act authorizing the town of Milton to establish a post-employment health insurance trust fund. The text, which establishes such a health insurance trust fund for Milton, is on the bottom of page 20 and the top of page 21. And the recommendation of the warrant committee is that the town vote yes. Does anyone wish to speak to this recommendation? All those in favor of the recommendation of the warrant committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the warrant committee is unanimously adopted. Pardon me, Glenn? Article 15 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate to reimburse the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Division of Employment Security for benefits paid to former employees of the town. And before I give the recommendation to the warrant committee, Mr. Pavlicek is recognized to amend the recommendation of the warrant committee.
I want to take this opportunity to refer to the yellow sheet that was distributed at the back and around and on the tables that I referred to last night. It contains on the top half of it our revenue adjustments that we have come up with since the warrant initially went to press, the changes in the overlay reserve, the changes in the state and county assessments, the availability of some bond premium revenue, changes in the cherry sheets, additional lottery funds, and our adjustment that we mentioned last night to bring the Chapter 70 aid in line with what we now know is in the House Ways and Means budget. That total together, if you look at the bottom of the next to far right column, nets out to $132,000. Last night I mentioned that we wanted to commit some of this through various articles, and so at the bottom half of the page you see 6 amendments that we intend to make to various warrant articles. The way it's phrased, I think you can read it. The first column is what currently is in the warrant. The second column is what we want to change it to. Third column is the difference, and the fourth column is a running total. The last column is the article reference. So in the fire and police set-aside, to bring the set-aside up to a full 2.5% of the salary line, we're looking at adding $41,000 to that line. Insurance general has come in at $33,000, as I mentioned, above the original 20% increase estimates. The building department, we are going to recommend an extra $10,000 into the personnel line of the non-override budget to try to put some money back into the building department. The Historical Commission, as I mentioned, there was $1,500 that was removed from them. We want to put that back so they can continue with getting the cemetery on the list of historic places and some other projects that they're working on. The Central Avenue appraisal was an article that we had no recommendation on in the warrant, and we'll speak to that later on. The $12,000 is the recommendation for that article. The remainder, snow and ice, is an additional $17,000, which should cover the overruns for snow and ice removal this winter after receiving the FEMA grant that we're expecting to receive. You'll notice at the bottom of that column it leaves $16,714 unaccounted for. We would like to recommend tonight that that money be allocated in the following ways, and I will make these amendments as we come to the various articles. In Article 21, the public safety article, the wire department overtime, $3,125, was put in the override budget. We would like to bring that back into the main budget. That is the overtime money when someone crashes into a streetlight and it falls down other than between 9 and 5. So we want to put that money back. We want to add $4,000 back into the youth department personnel line in line 28, move it from the override, move $4,000 back into the operating budget. We want to add an additional $4,000 into the health department general expenses under Article 40, and we'll speak to that later on. That would leave a remainder of $5,589. And the reason I'm bringing that up now is we want to put that last piece as a supplement into this unemployment budget, which we still believe, should the override not pass, is woefully underfunded. Given what would necessarily happen if the override failed, we would have unemployment costs that would exceed this. So our recommendation for Article 15 is recommended that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $201,044 for the purposes set forth in this article.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlicek. So the recommendation under Article 15 is that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $201,044 for the purposes set forth in this article. Does anyone wish to address Article 15? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 16 is to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 13 of the general bylaws, known as the Personnel Administration Bylaw, and then goes on by making the suggestions on pages 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, and the recommendation of the Warrant Committee appears on page 26, and that is that the town vote to amend Chapter 13 of the general bylaws, known as the Personnel Administration Bylaw, exactly as set forth in the schedule that appears in the preceding pages, and to appropriate the sum of $81,993 to fund wage adjustments effective July 1, 2001. Said sum to be added to the salary accounts of the departments as shown in the following tabulations. Accounting, $4,946. Appeals, $650. Assessors, $4,474. Building, plumbing, gas, $3,931. Cemetery, $2,621. Council on Aging, $2,777. Data processing, $356. Animal control, $1,056. Fire, $548. Health, $3,186. Library, $2,129. Park, $2,344. Personnel, $764. Police, $15,107. Public Works, $18,871. As broken out, I believe. General, $7,360. Vehicle maintenance, $944. Water, $6,227. Sewer, $2,265. Curbside recycling, $188. Solid waste general, $1,887. Selectmen, $3,087. Town clerk, $2,604. Town office building, $2,129. Treasurer collector, $4,027. Wire, $2,997. Youth, $2,665, for a total of $81,993. And then included in this appropriation are the sums of $6,227 representing expenses attributable to the water enterprise, and $2,265 representing expenses attributable to the sewer enterprise, which are to be included in Schedule A, local receipts not allocated of the tax recapitulation, as water and sewer estimated receipts, with the remainder of $73,501 to be raised from the tax levy. Does anyone wish to speak to Article 16 in the recommendation of the Warrant Committee? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is unanimously adopted. Article 17 is to see if the town will vote to amend Chapter 13 of the general bylaws, known as the Personnel Administration Bylaw, by deleting the last sentence in Section 4D6, which reads, heads of departments and or administrative assistants are not eligible for overtime payment, and by inserting in its place the following: the payment of overtime to heads of departments and other employees will be determined under federal and state wage and hour laws. It's recommended that the town vote yes. Mr. Pavlicek, do you wish to briefly explain what's going on here under Article 17? Why are we doing this?
We're doing this because the town bylaws are not in conformance with the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Sounds like a good idea. Okay. Anybody wish to speak to this article? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Oh, you want to speak? It should be. No. Is there somebody to assist on that mic? You turn it on? Just this shift switch should go up. All right, please give your name and which precinct you're a town meeting member.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Oh, okay. My name is Ben Talutis, and I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 8.
You're recognized.
On Article 17, are we required to conform to the Federal Labor Act?
The question is, are we required to conform with the Fair Labor Standards Act?
Yes,
We are? Okay.
yes.
And what's the financial impact in changing over from what we're doing now?
The issue is primarily in the clerks for various boards who work full-time during the day, attend evening meetings like the meetings of the selectmen, which run past their normal hours. In the past, they have been granted comp time, but their jobs have been such that oftentimes they have not been able ever to recoup the comp time. The Fair Labor Standards Act says if there is no ability to get that back, they're entitled to demand overtime for the hours past 40 hours a week they work. And that's primarily the issue. In 3 or 4 boards in the budget, it'll probably run $4,000 or $5,000 in the budgets of 3 or 4 different boards, is the financial implication.
What's the current estimated non-paid overtime?
Say again, what is the what?
Current estimated non-paid overtime.
Unpaid overtime?
Yeah.
I don't think there is any unpaid overtime.
Well, I assume management never came under that category.
Managers still don't. They're exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act.
Oh, okay.
We're more concerned about these administrative assistants who are not exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act, who are working such as clerks on various boards where they actually exceed the 40-hour limitation in a week, so that overtime is due them. Is that?
Well, that clarifies.
And Steve Hennessy, the chair of the Personnel Board. Steve, can you enlighten us further on this? Thank you. Good question, too.
Thank you. This really amounts to nothing more than a statement that the town is going to comply with state and federal law. The personnel bylaw, Chapter 13, gets amended irregularly, and every so often when town council gives it scrutiny, it becomes apparent that a sentence is no longer applicable. In fact, the town once had a group of employees that actually had the title administrative assistants, which is a capitalized term in the bylaw. We no longer have any such employees. We do have a number of non-managerial people whose jobs could be deemed to be that of administrative assistants, and in order to eliminate any ambiguity about whether they were eligible to receive overtime payment, at town council's suggestion, rather than attempt to break out position by position which non-department head might be sufficiently managerial to be exempt, the bylaw that we're recommending, or that the warrant committee is recommending, simply specifies that the town will determine eligibility for overtime under federal and state wage and hour laws. I think if any particular questions with respect to particular non-department heads come up, they will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis with town council. But at this point, at least the bylaw that we have on the books will not be inconsistent in any way with any federal, state, or federal law, federal or state law.
Thank you.
May I ask another question?
Yeah, one more. I usually require you to give all your questions out before, but one more, sure.
I didn't get a chance at the opening. It has nothing to do with this.
Okay. What is the question?
I wanted to ask you, yesterday on Article 10, there was some negative responses. Right. And you just overruled everybody that voted negative.
No.
Well, that's my impression.
All right, well, let me let me explain what's going on, okay? When we come to a vote on every one of these articles, they are not always unanimous, and they not required to be unanimous. Most of them are only required that there be a majority vote. Under that particular article, there had to be 2/3. I wasn't dismissing the negatives. I understood the negatives. My good friend Peter Mullen was against it, and so there was quite reasonable to vote either aye or no. So I point that out because it really wasn't particularly, in my mind, controversial, whichever way one were to vote. But it was clear that there were 2/3 who favored passage, so I declared that it passed by 2/3. I wasn't in any way trying to denigrate or pass over, or whatever word you used, those who voted no. You're entitled to vote no, and if a majority had voted no, or indeed if 1/3 had voted no, it wouldn't have passed. Does that clarify things for you?
Up to a point. If we disagree with you, can we get a count?
Yes.
And how do we do that?
That, if you recall, is announced in the opening remarks, and if 7 voters stand in place, all 7 voters who voted no, if they didn't agree, all they had to do is stand up, and that would have automatically triggered a count.
Thank you. That answers my
Now,
question.
let's be clear on that. I mean, I want you all to know what you can or cannot do, particularly where it involves me. I'm usually, I don't think in 10 years I've ever been wrong on the call, but it's been close sometimes. And sometimes it's ayes and nays sound differently up here, and you don't always get it right. So if you think it's close, I mean, it's your job to stand up, because if you're not going to stand up, you know, I'm moving on. Simple as that, because I will have made my mind up. Now, those of you who have been here a while, you will also know that sometimes I say, look, I just don't know, and I will go right to a standing vote. So I hope that answers the gentleman's question. Fully, I hope. I mean, there should not be, you know, you're entitled, you can turn down any article you want. I mean, I'm just up here getting the votes. Yes, sir.
Phil Sullivan, Precinct 4.
You're recognized.
Thank you. Article 17. Do I understand then that the heads of departments are not included
No.
because they are not non-exempt employees? Is that what we're saying? Because all the emphasis has been put on...
No, it all it says is, as I read it, that payment of overtime to heads of departments and other employees, which is everybody, the way that's written. You have
That's
heads of
right.
departments and you have other employees. That covers the whole universe of all employees. Now, it didn't have to be written that way. It could have been all employees will be paid overtime in accordance with federal and state wage and hour laws. And that's basically all it says. If the law requires someone to be paid overtime, they will be paid, whether it's under the federal law or the state law, as I read this. And I assure you, as a labor lawyer, I frankly know what I'm talking about. And they're going to get paid. And that's all Mr. Hennessy pointed out. That the way the bylaw was written, it says they're not eligible for overtime. Well, that doesn't happen to be the case under certain federal laws, one of which is the Fair Labor. Oh, no, it is the Fair Labor Standards Act.
All right, I won't argue with a labor lawyer.
Okay.
Let me
Thank
ask
you.
for another clarification.
But you're free to. I mean, let me know.
Oh, I know. It's a losing battle, however. That's neither here nor there. Back, I think it was a year or two ago, we had a classification study undertaken here in the town.
Mm-hmm.
And I think every position in town was reviewed at that point in time.
Right.
My question is, when that classification study was completed, does it not bear an identification for each position as to whether or not it is an exempt or non-exempt position?
Now, that's a good question. Mr. Hennessy, can you answer that question? Do we have a list of who, in the judgment of whomever, is an exempt or non-exempt employee? For those of you who don't know the difference, if you're not exempt from the Fair Labor Standards Act, then if you work over 40 hours in a week, you are required to be paid time and a half, simply put. But if you are exempt, such as managers and others, you're not. So the question of the member, which is an interesting and fair question, is do we have a list somewhere?
The answer is yes and no.
Good answer. That covers the waterfront.
That covers the spectrum.
Another lawyer, no doubt. Right, Steve? Keep in mind.
For the picky...
You didn't want a straight answer, did you? Go ahead, Steve. I'm sorry.
For the picky ones who aren't satisfied with that answer, what I mean to say is when the
I'd like to get it right. It's not that I'm being picky.
When the reclassification study was done, a determination of exempt or non-exempt was not assigned to each and every position within the town. In fact, it wasn't assigned to any of the positions. And that's because the question of whether a given person's job responsibilities render that person exempt or non-exempt can conceivably change even from year to year. And it's generally not a good idea, where we've been advised by both attorneys and consultants to assign to a written job description an E or an N for exempt or non-exempt. Since doing the study, we have sought input both from town council and from an outside consulting firm concerning the current job responsibilities of certain people in the town, and have received opinions on a case-by-case basis as to whether any given position, the way it's being worked at any given time, is a non-exempt one which entitles the person to overtime or is not. But the decision it has been emphasized to us that that decision is a fluid one, and rather than just assigning a fixed E next to the job description, when the issue comes up, we should consult with town council and consult with our management consultants before making any final determination. And on a case-by-case basis, that's what the personnel board in the town has been doing. Does that answer the question?
It gives me a position, but my understanding always was that when you had a classification study, you automatically, under the law, identified each position that was non-exempt so that that individual knew that that position was paid overtime, and that everybody that applied for a position that was an exempt position clearly understood that overtime was not coming their way. And I have all respect in the world for the lawyers and one thing and another, but I thought that was a part of the law. But if you say it isn't, I'll accept that. Thank you.
Let me be clear that I'm not saying that it is or isn't a part of the law. I'm saying that when the consultant did the report, that was the recommendation that the consultant gave the town. I can tell the body that at the present time, although it's theoretically possible, I guess, that a head of a department could nonetheless be deemed non-exempt and entitled to overtime, I find it hard to imagine that happening. And at the current time in the town of Milton, anyone who functions as a department head is deemed an exempt employee and is expected to work overtime or work whatever hours the job requires without receiving any time and a half for hours over 40. The only times that we have consulted with town council have been in situations where people who are beneath the rank of department head, but who may come close to the sort of managerial threshold, have been asked to work extra hours. And in particular, the people whose position spurred this article were some of the, what I think have been deemed clearly non-exempt clerical staff, who were asked to come in at night and cover some of the boards and committees working on a time after 5 p.m. So I'm not expressing any opinion, and I don't know whether the moderator or any other lawyer here wants to express an opinion about whether a classification study should include that data. I'm just saying that the one that the town did 2 or 3 years ago did not include it, and it was recommended that that information not be made a part of the study.
Fine. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question. Anyone else on the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 17? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is carried. Article 18 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the purpose of funding cost items not in departmental budgets for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2001 for collective bargaining agreements reached before or after this town meeting between the town and bargaining units representing town employees, and such sums to be allocated by the departments. Mr. Pavlicek has recognized the purpose of making an amendment to the recommendation of the Warrant Committee.
This is the first one of the ones that's included on the yellow sheet. The Warrant Committee is recommending that the sum of $156,256 be appropriated for the purposes of this article to be allocated to the police and fire departments by future town meeting vote, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $156,256 be raised from the tax levy.
Thank you, Mr. Pavlicek. Thus, the recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the sum of $156,256 be appropriated for the purposes of this article to be allocated to the police and fire departments by future town meeting vote, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $156,256 be raised from the tax levy. Does anyone wish to address the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 18? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is carried. Article 19 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate, transfer from available funds, or otherwise provide to supplement the appropriation to the fire department salaries and wages under Article 20 of the 2000 annual town meeting, and to act on anything relating thereto. Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is the sum of $234,000 be appropriated for the purposes of this article, and that to meet said appropriation, the sum of $234,000 be raised from funds certified by the Department of Revenue as free cash. Does anyone wish to address the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 19? All those in favor of the recommendation of the Warrant Committee say aye. Those opposed? Recommendation of the Warrant Committee is carried. Article 20 is to see what sum of money and for what purposes, therefore, the town will vote to appropriate from additional lottery receipts received from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts and to act on anything relating thereto. Recommendations of the Warrant Committee is that no appropriation be made under this particular article. Anybody wish to address Article 20?
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Could you tell me how much the total lottery receipts is?
I don't have a clue, but Mr. Pavlicek hopefully will know. Total lottery receipts available for 2002?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Is that your only question?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You can sit down then.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Prior to the additional lottery funds of $154,325 that was reported in the last week or so, through the cherry sheets and one other set of additional lottery funds that were received earlier in the year, the total was $2,486,073. Then this is the extra $154,000 on top.
Thank you. Mr.
Could you
repeat it again? $2,486,073?
$2,486,073 was the amount of the first additional, the cherry sheet lottery money plus the first additional set of lottery money that came in, I think it was January.
So is that the total?
That's the total. No, the total would be that plus the $154,000.
That amount plus $154,000?
Right. So $2,640,000.
No, it's
Yeah, $2,640,398.
I say again the total. 2 million.
2 million. Looking at two different numbers here. Oh, no, I've got to add it to the cherry sheet. That doesn't have the new one on it, does it? No. 2,640,398.
398 is the total?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Livingston, do you have a follow-up question?
Yes, Mr.
You're
Moderator.
recognized for the purposes of a follow-up question.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Could through the chair, could an explanation be given to the comment under this article?
Yes.
These funds are being made available to reduce the tax levy through Article 69 of this warrant.
That's right. Do you want to explain that, Glenn?
The supplemental lottery funds article is sort of an anomaly for an annual town meeting. Normally what would happen is revenue comes in and it's appropriated through the articles that actually expend it. They say we are going to use tax levy funds with this, we're going to use free cash for that, we're going to use overlay reserve for this, lottery funds for that, and so forth. What we're doing is taking all the available kinds of funds that aren't specified in the various articles, and under Article 69 saying these funds are being used to offset the tax levy. So essentially what happens is when we say things are being raised from the tax levy in all these articles, they're not necessarily being raised from the property tax levy. They're being raised from all sorts of revenue. And what Article 69 does at the end is more or less a bookkeeping article that takes the various other sources of revenue and applies them to the tax levy so they can be used against other expenditures. This particular article is a standard article for a special town meeting. If this were his January special town meeting and we had just received some additional lottery aid and the budgets were all in place, we could use an article like this to further supplement an existing budget. So we could take more additional lottery funds and put it here or put it there or put it the other place. But being as this is an annual town meeting and we're approving all the budgets and creating them within the warrant, there's no reason to appropriate money that way. And frankly, it's more or less an oversight that this article made it as far as the warrant. And that's just a long version of the short answer.
Okay.
Thank you. Is there any of that...
Wait a minute. You're recognized first.
Thank
okay.
You, sir. Is there any of that lottery funds allocated for free cash that will be set aside for free cash or in the rainy day account?
No, that's two questions.
Of the $2 million.
Of the $2 million, the first question is any of that... You're confusing. Well, that's not free...
How much
I'm sorry. I'm pretending I'm chairman of the warrant committee. Ask your questions, and Mr. Pavlicek, who is the chairman of the warrant committee, and I'm not, in case anybody was confused. All right, you have two questions. One is, does that become free cash? And the second question is?
How much of this is being set aside for the free cash, and how much is being set aside for the rainy day fund?
0 and 0. It's being used to fund articles within this warrant. If we did not spend it, it would float to free cash and be certified as free cash at the end of next fiscal year. Sorry, at the end of this fiscal year for appropriation at a town meeting next year. But we can appropriate it now, and money being short as it is, we decided not to leave any of it unspent, and we're recommending appropriation of all of it for the purposes of funding this warrant.
Thank you. All right. Anyone else wish to address the recommendation of the warrant committee on Article 20? All those in favor of the recommendation of the warrant committee that no appropriation be made, say aye. Those opposed? Okay. It's still carried. Now, I know you've all just been waiting to get to Article 21, but before we do, we're going to take in no longer than a 10-minute break. So I want you back here at 5 of 9 so we can start some serious business under Article 21.
Thank you.
Chairman of the Warrant Committee, Mr. Pavlicek, is recognized for purposes of amending the recommendation of the Warrant Committee under Article 21. Go ahead, Mr. Pavlicek.
The Warrant Committee wishes to amend, as I mentioned, two of the numbers in Article 21. At the top of page 30, building, plumbing, and gas, we wish to add $10,000 to the non-contingent appropriation salary and wages line. So it would be $130,109 instead of $120,109. Be $130,000. So the total underneath that would be $132,173 instead of $122,173. Then at the very bottom of the page in the wire department, we wish to move the 3125 that you see in the contingent appropriation column and move it into the non-contingent appropriation column. So that would make it 135,383 for that number, 135,383. That would adjust the total at the bottom of the wire department line there to 143,783. And the grand total in the non-contingent appropriation would be up by 13,125. The grand total in the contingent appropriation would be down by 3,125.
And the number on the total under under public safety, that $2,954,469 will go up 10,000.
Excuse me?
Or is the total for fire? I'm sorry, it's for fire.
No,
so it's
fire.
132. All right. So the grand total under non-contingent appropriation is 3918528 going backwards.
No.
8,250,163.
Oh.
No.
Going backwards. All right.
183.
8,258,193.
Everybody have that? 8,258,193.
And the grand total for the non-contingent appropriation would be 474,628.
You mean contingent?
Contingent, sorry. 474.
Everybody have that?
628.
Okay. All right, so the Article 21 is to see what sum of money the town will vote to appropriate for the 12-month period beginning July 1, 2001 for the several categories classified as public safety and to act on anything relating thereto. The recommendation of the Warrant Committee is that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation under the heading non-contingent appropriation, and that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation in the column captioned contingent appropriation, contingent upon passage by the voters of the town of Milton of an override ballot question under Chapter 59, Section 21, capital C of the Massachusetts General Laws. So for building, plumbing, and gas, the two numbers, non-contingent and contingent, are $132,173 and $15,048. For fire, it's $2,954,469 with a contingent appropriation of $317,079. MEMA, $6,251 with a contingent appropriation of an additional $2,750. Police, appropriation of $4,629,643 with a contingent additional appropriation of $139,751. Street lighting, $364,266. Traffic, $27,608. Wire, salary and wages, non-contingent 135,383, general expenses 8,400 for a total of 143,783. Grand totals of non-contingent appropriations of 8,258,193, and an additional contingent appropriation of 474,628. And to meet said appropriation for leash law enforcement, the sum of $1,400 shall be transferred from the dog licenses surcharge account received pursuant to Chapter 197 of the Acts of 1981. The balance is to be raised in the tax levy of the fiscal year. Mr. McCarthy is recognized, Chairman of the Board of Selectmen.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The Board of Selectmen would like to propose an amendment to the recommendation of the Warrant Committee. And if you'll bear with me, I'll give you the numbers first, and then I'll speak to it. The Board of Selectmen would like to propose increasing the contingent appropriation to the Building, Plumbing, and Gas Department in the following way. We propose to add $4,729 to the salary and wage line item and $1,054 to the general expense line item, which is an additional, which would make the bottom line on the total contingent appropriation, at least according to my math, $20,821. This would have the effect of restoring the building, plumbing, and gas budget to the requested amount by the department. And that the reason we propose to do this is that we feel this is a department that is going to be under a significant workload in the coming fiscal year. I just want to cite three specific instances where this is going to occur. We understand that Milton Academy is going to be doing a very aggressive, on the order of magnitude of $40 million, renovation plan to their campuses, primarily their dormitories, in the coming fiscal year and beyond. But a significant portion of that work will take place in the coming fiscal year. We have the school building project coming up in Milton, and this is a department that has extensive regulatory and oversight requirements. You need to pull a building permit with the town building inspector in order to ensure that you are able to do the work you propose to do, and then that work has to be inspected afterwards. We're picturing a building inspector coming into work in the midst of $40 million worth of work at Milton Academy and additional work to be done at the Milton schools, and coming into work in the morning trying to figure out where to begin because it's an overwhelming scope of work. The proposed addition would also give our building inspector, who the Board of Selectmen feels strongly we should support, he's a very solid professional and a very competent individual, the option of adding a little bit of clerical help to support his efforts as well, and adding a slight amount to the general expense item, which also gives him the opportunity to expend that in the way he needs to support his activities. We understand that this cannot be found in the non-contingent budget because the funds are simply not there. But if we are going to go to an override, we would like to have the opportunity to increase this funding to full funding so that this department can perform its job.
Is that it from the Selectmen? All right, before we take a motion on that, we'll find out if the Warrant Committee will take that as a friendly suggested further recommendation.
By a poll of the Warrant Committee, we'll accept that as a friendly amendment.
All right, so the bottom line under total is going to be $20,821.31. And what are the figures under salary and wages and general expenses? Totals. right, what they are is 13,712 and 18,441 and 2,390.
For a new subtotal for the department of 20,831, a new bottom line grand total under contingent appropriation of 480,411.
Say again. Say again.
480,411.
411.
And I'm grateful to the
So the
warrant.
total contingent additional amount is 480,411. 480,411. Okay, that's the recommendation of the warrant committee. All right, anybody wish to be recognized? Mr. Kaler is recognized. Good evening, Mr. Kaler. Whoop.
Some of us can remember that sometimes when the substance of an article has been complicated or covered many facets, as I said, some of us can remember that sometimes when the substance of an article has been complicated or has covered many facets, that the article has been divided into parts so as to give the town meeting members the clearest possible choice. That was the purpose of it. I'm not suggesting any division of this article, but I am suggesting that many town meeting members are pro-choice when it comes to voting and would be upset by any lack of a clear choice of an override vote. My basic question is this: if that were so, how much more upset and unhappy would the voting public be when their voting choice is restricted? Furthermore, we have a responsibility to the townspeople who vote to give them the most clear choice, since they will be paying the bill. Finally, I should like to make a statement and then ask a question. From my experience, it seems that unhappy voters do tend to vote, but they do not tend to support a voting process that makes them unhappy. It's the process that we are talking about. And the question is, if this town meeting and this Board of Selectmen this year choose to have a single vote on all operational override questions, and then it fails, what will be the fallback position? We are entitled to know that. And if the town officials have not considered this possibility, they should begin to look into that fallback position now. Now, we all know that the Board of Selectmen determine how override questions are put to the voters. This town is now in a situation where one vote could make the difference whether there will be a single operational override or a series of individual operational overrides. All I'm suggesting is that it would be of value to get a sense of the extent of this town meeting's support of an individual override vote rather than a single override vote. And to that end, I would like to offer a small amendment to Article 21. Going to page 29 I would suggest that the second line from the bottom, it says Milton of A-N. To remove the A-N and to substitute that, the four words, a separate Article 21. So as the article would read, recommended that the town appropriate the amount shown in the following tabulation under the heading non-contingent appropriation, and that the town vote the amount shown in the following tabulation captioned contingent appropriation, contingent upon the voters of the town of Milton of a separate Article 21 ballot override under Chapter 59, Section 21, capital C of the Massachusetts laws. Now, that's the motion I would like to make.
Hang on, in a second, but before I accept it, I'm going to...
I'd like to speak to that amendment if I may.
No, well, I haven't accepted it yet because I may have to confer with town council, okay? Because I'm not sure it's a legitimate motion, okay?
Well,
so just hang on. If it is, you get it, but I have a legal concern here.
This guy before me for some reason.
The problem under law is they get to decide. And town council says the town meeting can't dictate to them how to do it.
I'm not dictating, and I said that
but it
before.
would be passed that way, and it would be, I think, out of
The
order.
purpose of this is to get a sense of the meeting only, and I said to them before that
Still here.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm just not building it.
Putting it in there would be mandating it. Make it.
but nothing is mandated because they don't have to put it on the ballot at all. They don't have to put it on. They have complete. Hold on. All I'm just saying, I want to get a sense of the meeting. That's valuable. This is one of the most important items. And I just want to get a sense of the meeting.
George contingency says it's separate. Would give an option question for each article. That's what we wanted.
It's the only way I can.
But it's like going on a veto. In other words, people could vote for what they
Why not? Because they're not dictating. I'm not dictating.
Not good for the town.
Trying to make this vote contingent on a separate ballot question for this article.
I'm asking them to have to make an amendment. Now, this amendment is very well used.
It's all right.
But you'll get a sense of the meaning as to how people feel. I think that's very valuable. I think it's worth it.
That's what they discussed.
I think it's a very simple item. It's just adding. It's
I think it's right
sense of the meaning. And that's valuable unless you don't think so.
Contingency clause rather than voting against the additional sums for each of these items.
I see no problem.
It can be done, do you?
I see no problem legally.
It's an executive right, isn't it?
All I want to do is I just want to go through it.
My understanding of it.
It's like they have a lot of power
to say.
Frankly, I know you're
Let me have you say, we'll advise the council that it's
I don't disagree with you there. I disagree with what we have a problem with
in order
is
to
funds being taken from us when
let me just see, is there some way we can get
which has happened in the past.
need here legitimate?
Not under you, but under the Board of Selectmen. So we're very paranoid of all of it, you know? And I spoke to these guys. I sent a letter to Charlie. I'm willing to discuss it, but we need some kind of assurance, you know?
Let me give it some thought and talk to John about it. It doesn't have to be
We have to consider it
There's a way of doing it,
even though it wasn't your board, and in fact,
I just can't do it
two
this
different fronts that it happened. So we have...
Okay, that proposed motion
94.
has been ruled out of order in that it is up to the selectmen. It is not within our jurisdiction to be telling the Board of Selectmen to have a particular override or not. But I have told Mr. Kaler that he raises an interesting question. It may be a matter of some help want of a better word, to the selectmen, if there was a sense from the town meeting at some point, whether or not they wanted the so-called menu approach or not, wouldn't be binding, but we can't really do it this way. So what I've told Mr. Kaler is I'm going to confer with the Board of Selectmen, confer with Town Council especially, and if there's some way, legitimately, that we can think of getting this sense, which is, nobody's ever asked me this before, so I haven't given it any consideration. We would try to do that. And Mr. Kaler does, on this subject, have a few more remarks, and he's recognized for the purposes of making those remarks. Mr. Kaler, you may proceed.
Thank you. Just to review what I mentioned earlier, we all know that the Board of Selectmen determine how override questions are put to the voters. And this town is now in a situation where one vote could determine whether there will be a single operational override or a series of individual articles override votes. And what I was saying is that it would be of value to get a sense of the meeting as to whether to get a sense of how much support there might be for an individual overrides rather than a single override. And speaking to the motion, I would say this, and that's why I put in those few words to have a separate override. And I do believe that that is a legal motion, but be that as it may. It's simply not fair to the town's voters and the taxpayers to deny them the very same right to vote that we are exercising on these articles in this town meeting. This amendment could give the Milton voter the same opportunities of exercising what we as town meeting members have. This amendment, if accepted, and it might not be, but even if it were not accepted, it would enable those who pay the bills to evaluate each article on its own merits in the very same way that we town meeting members evaluate each article on its own merits. This amendment may or may not pass, and in any event, it would not be the final say because that's the Board of Selectmen. But the results of this vote would be of great interest to everyone. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Kaler. And I will follow up on it as I promised. All right, anyone else wish to speak to the article?
Mr. Moderator? Yes, on the article.
You're recognized.
Jack Grant, Precinct 8.
Okay, Mr. Grant?
I'll also state that I'm the president of the Milton Firefighters, Local 1116.
You are welcome.
I rise to make a motion to amend the fire department portion of the budget by the sum of $317,079 to be taken from the stabilization fund.
It's been moved and seconded, and now this is in the non-contingent, I assume.
That's correct.
Right? And it's the whole 317,079 that is in the contingent.
Yes,
you wish to move to the non-contingent, is that correct?
That's correct.
And your suggestion is that it be taken from the stabilization fund?
That's also correct.
Okay. Now that really complicates things. And it's been seconded. Okay. Now that's the motion we're considering, okay?
On the motion?
On the motion. You may be heard.
Unquity House, Milton Hospital, Edge Hill Road, Adams Street, Pierce Street, and Gerald Road. All of these locations have one thing in common. Each has been the scene of a fatal fire in this town. There have been fires in many of the town's high-occupancy buildings, including 3 of our schools, the Mary A. Cunningham, the Milton High School, and the Pierce Middle School have all had significant fires. In 1962, a fire study committee reported that the proper manning level should be set at a minimum of 19 firefighters on duty at all times. The
The most recent Fire Study Committee report set the minimum number at 14 and cited further that this number in fact represented the minimum and not the optimum number of on-duty firefighters, and that this number takes into account the financial constraints that are placed on this town. This report also stated that with the Engine 4 station closed, the town's fire protection was unbalanced and provided for a delayed response at best. It also created a life safety hazard for both the town's citizens and the firefighters. I can assure you that the numbers given in both these reports are accurate. The vast majority of the time, the fire department operates with only 11 men on duty, substantially below the recommended minimum. Since 1980, our staffing has been reduced by 20. Our apparatus has been reduced by a ladder truck. These cuts have reduced the department budget by $1 million annually. Over the years, we have absorbed these cuts quietly until the closing of Engine 4. We currently operate with 11 firefighters operating 3 engines, 1 ladder, and 1 command vehicle. This is ground zero for the Milton Fire Department. Anything below this level, and we effectively cease to function as a viable fire department. Below this level, the risk of injury or loss of life to our citizens and my brother and sister firefighters becomes unacceptable. I stress this fact by calling your attention to the number of firefighters who stood outside with us from around the state yesterday, who felt that this issue was important enough to give up their free time and come stand in support of our citizens. This is not a contract dispute. It is not a money issue to the firefighters. Simply stated, it is a life safety issue for this town. As I stated before, your fire department currently sits at ground zero. We cannot safely absorb any further cuts. We must remain hands-on, hands-off from here on out. The people of this town cannot afford to have their fire department used as a political pawn. I understand, and don't take this as a shot, please, I'll explain further. I understand that someone asked a member of the Warrant Committee if it was true that Engine 4 may be closed again. The reply was, don't worry, if the override does not pass, the plan is that they'll close Engine 1. I do not consider that a shot toward the Warrant Committee. I consider that a shot to myself and my local, that we have not done a good enough job educating the public as to why we need what we need. Make no mistake, the number on the engine door has nothing to do with life safety. The safety of this town depends on a combination of properly placed stations manned with an adequate number of firefighters. Currently, we are just barely adequate. We presently meet these requirements with the skin of our teeth. Any more cuts anywhere, and the numbers no longer add up. In closing, I will quote Selectman Mullen from last year's town meeting. If we, as town meeting members, act in good faith for the voters of our precincts, our decision has already been made for us, because the voters have spoken on this issue with their previous override vote to reopen Engine 4. Please honor the voters' wishes and approve this motion. Thank you.
Mr. Grant, can you stay at the microphone, please? Do I assume correctly, since I don't have it in writing, but I'm not going to insist you put it in writing because I think I've got it, but that part of your motion is that to meet said appropriation, $317,079 be taken from the stabilization fund?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, does everybody understand what's going on here? We're going to, on this, this is a motion to amend the recommendation of the Warrant Committee. Perfectly fine, it's been seconded. And the motion is to shift that $317,079 over to the non-contingent part and added after to meet said appropriation police law enforcement, et cetera, at the end after the acts of 1981, and to further meet said appropriation, 317,079 is to be taken from the stabilization fund. That's what's on the table, okay? And I will hear debate on the pending motion, okay? All right, we've got, you and I are straight, Mr. Grant, that's what you want. That's the motion, it's been seconded. Mrs. Augustino, this is on the motion to amend, right? You're recognized. They can't hear you up front. Do we have any technicians? I don't know. Hang on, technician coming. Can we see if we can get that fixed, though? All right, we're trying to get that fixed. You have to hold this one.
Mr. Moderator, could you please obtain the information from whomever would have it regarding Article 15? If this motion were to carry, how much, there's a two-part question, how much we may be able to save in unemployment costs so that the actual $317,079 may not be the actual number we need to appropriate. And I would then ask if Jack Grant would accept that as a friendly amendment so that we have the actual cost, because I do support this motion.
Your question is how much, does anybody know, well, how much in unemployment costs would you save under the appropriation under Article 15 if in fact this passed, which assumes you wouldn't be laying somebody off, I guess, which assumes that you would be laying somebody off if you didn't do it.
Additionally, if we know the number that we're talking of layoffs, I would assume he'd need to know that to get the answer to the question.
Boy, I highly, well, rather than speculate, is that a obtainable figure? Is that your question? Okay, thank you. We'll try to get it. I think I'll try to get it right now, if we can. Well, while they're getting it, we'll go on to other speakers. Mr. Lowney, you're recognized.
Tim Lowney, Precinct 9. I think this is a particularly important vote because what we're talking about is potential layoffs to our firefighters. And for that reason, I think it's important that we know what we're balancing here. And I just wanted to understand, so that we all understand, what would the effect be on the stabilization fund as opposed to what the effect would be on the firefighters. We're putting the firefighters at risk because if an override doesn't pass, there'll be layoffs. So what I want to find out is what would happen if this money is taken out of the stabilization fund? What's the worst possible thing that happens to the town in that
All right,
situation?
I think that's a legitimate expansion on Mrs. Augustino's question. She's asking, well, how much would you save in the unemployment fund? But I think, if I understand your question, what does the
stabilization
317,079 represent? If you don't have that in your budget, what exactly is going to happen to the fire department? Does everybody understand that? Because I don't. Mr. Pavlicek will hopefully explain.
On the first question of unemployment, we're running very rough figures here. Figuring 70% of salary for half a year, you're looking at something on the order of $18,000 plus or minus for per firefighter. So that's the ballpark we're dealing in for unemployment cost, just as a really rough number. The effect on the stabilization fund, I can be a little more explicit on. We have towards $800,000 in the stabilization fund, and this would obviously take $300,000 plus out of it. I can speak to that immediately, that the Warren Committee would be unalterably opposed to raiding the stabilization fund for something that is not an absolute one-time emergency, critical crisis situation. I mean, the stabilization fund is there for the downturn in the economy when people lose their jobs and can't pay their tax bills, and we're mid-year through and we're not getting the receipts and the town may have to shut down, or it's for the cases in 1981 where the state nearly went belly up and did reversions in the middle of the night to funding accounts. And it's absolutely the ultimate rainy day fund. It's not a fund we've had for a long period of time. It doesn't have a lot of money in it. $800,000 on a budget of our size is a small stabilization fund. Plus, the second additional reason is, as I mentioned last night, we're about to do $100 million in bonding. And one of the things all the bonding agencies are looking at is your state of reserves. And our stabilization fund is vital. One of the things we talked about when we met with Standard & Poor's earlier this year was the fact that, in a sense, the fact that our stabilization fund is small at $800,000 meant less to them than the fact we had never touched it. There are towns who put money every year into their stabilization fund and take money out every year from their stabilization fund. And the fact of the matter is, to a bond agency, it doesn't look like a stabilization fund. So, especially at this time, with this level of bonding coming up, we would be extremely, I really can't overstate our reluctance to touch anything in the stabilization fund for anything less than an absolute catastrophic emergency situation.
All right, and as a part of Mr. Lowney's question, can we get a crisper understanding of what 317,000 represents, either from you or the fire department? The comment says a possible layoff of 3 or 4 people and reduction in services. And I sense from Mr. Lowney's, part of his question was, can we be a little more explicit on if, I mean, somebody's asked to do an extraordinary thing. Take 317,000 from the stabilization fund. And you pointed out that'd be extraordinary, and we don't pay for that. And whether the town meeting is going to do that, seems to me it has to understand better what the 317,000 represents from someone, Mr. Pavlicek, and or the fire chief, or somebody.
One of the things it was mentioned in the report of the warrant committee at the beginning of this warrant is the fact that there are really 2 new sources, 2 new programmatic changes in the override budget. This, in fact, is one of them. As the fire department has alluded to, the 11-person staffing for 3 stations at any given time is a small staffing level. It is 3 persons on each truck. It is 1 person to drive the ladder, and it is 1 lieutenant. Currently, we have 52 firefighters. 52 firefighters, which is 4 shifts of 13. If you work out the math, 13 people is not enough to man 11-person staffing all week long, because there's vacation time, there are various different issues, and 13 people on a shift is not enough to staff it at 11. $200,000 roughly of the money in the override budget was proposed by the warrant committee to add 4 firefighters, to bring it up to 14-person staffing, because at 14-person staffing you can cover 11 through the year, assuming you don't have people out on disability, but under normal circumstances you can cover 11 during the year with a minimum of overtime spending. We just appropriated in prior article $234,000 for overtime this year in the fire department, directly attributable to the fact that 1, they're understaffed, and 2, they have some people out on disability. I mean, it is a long-standing issue in the fire department that they have had vast overtime needs over the last few years. So 200,000, or roughly 200,000 of this money in the override budget was intended by the warrant committee to increase staffing levels in the fire department. Now, if the override did not pass and that money were not to be there and an additional 100,000 were to be cut, which is essentially the scenario if the 300,000 were not approved. Again, it's a large personnel budget. The fire department, the fire chief in his comments to us indicated he thought that would be the loss of approximately 4 firefighters. I would rather he spoke to that than I, because I'm just relating things hearsay at this point. But I think our half of it is that, from our perspective, $200,000 of this is new money. So the failure of an override would be an effective cut of slightly over $100,000 to the budget, and maybe the fire chief is better to speak to that than I.
Now, is there anyone from the fire department, like the fire chief, that wishes to address what the 317 means? We have town meeting looking at appropriation for fiscal year 2001 of $2,930,855, non-contingent of slightly higher at $2,954,000, an explanation by the warrant committee that of the additional 317, that was to add 4 firefighters. And I'm wondering if the fire department, is the chief here? Or, chief, can you help us? And you're recognized to do so.
One firefighter's position approximately would equal $40,000 to $50,000. That would be including his salary and health insurance benefits. So you can project that to see how that fits into the shortfall. You're probably talking of 6 or 7 firefighter positions being lost. That does not take into consideration any of the unemployment benefits. I really don't have any information on what the cost is, other than what was just stated.
Can't hear you.
You get a hold a little closer to your mouth, Chief.
Did you hear anything I said?
No, start again.
Okay. I'll try it again.
John Michael, if he doesn't hear it, then nobody can hear it. He's up back there.
The cost of eliminating a firefighter would be about $30,000 to $40,000 a year. That would be his base salary and his health insurance benefits. So you're probably talking 6 or 7 firefighter jobs. That would not take into consideration any extra cost due to any unemployment payments that would have to be made.
Now, Chief, are you saying that if you don't get that $300,000, you are going to lay off 7 firefighters from your present workforce? Is that what you're saying?
Right. That would probably, right now we're at an 11-man minimum, and that puts 3 firefighters on each engine company and 1 firefighter on the ladder truck and a deputy chief. That's the present complement of the fire department. That's why the manpower has reached a critical situation. You can't put less than 1 guy on the ladder truck. It should have 4 people on it. On an engine company, you can't have less than 3 people on an engine company. It's not a functioning engine company if there's only 2 people on it. In fact, when we provide mutual aid to Boston or Quincy, they don't want us to come with 3 firefighters on a fire engine. They want us to put 4 on. That's the way that they man their apparatus, and that's the way they provide mutual aid, and that's the way they like to receive mutual aid. And these manpower things are done through the NFPA. They're carefully studied by how they can function and how many men are necessary. So even eliminating the manpower from the present 11 to a 10-man minimum would mean taking an engine company out of service.
All right. You presently have how many firefighters, Chief? 52?
52 in total.
All right. And are you telling the town meeting that if you don't get this $317,000, you're going to go down to 46? 45, 46?
Correct. There'll be
all right, now,
at least 7 positions.
Most of the town meeting members are a little perplexed at the moment because they heard the chairman of the warrant committee say that 200,000 of the 300,000 was to add 4. And that if you didn't get that 200, all you would not be able to do is add 4. And so it sounds like the warrant committee thinks at worst, if you take it out of the personnel item, that you'd have to wipe out 2. And now at least half the faces out there are perplexed, as mine is, where you're now saying, bag the additional 4 the warrant committee wants. If I don't get my 300,000, I'm going to cut 6 or 7. So there's a little confusion among town meeting members who have to vote on this. Now, can you further clarify that for us?
Well, I think we can look at this present year's budget was, underfunded, close to $300,000, because that is the additional funds that need to be added, to get through this year. So to to take the 2.9 million that we got this year and bring it into next year, you know, the chances are that it would also be underfunded for next year.
Yeah. What about, well, let's cut to the chase. Where do you stand on the 4 additional that the warrant committee thinks, when it recommended that 317 go into the contingent override, they thought the voters would be voting to add 4 police officers? Is that just not true? Are they screwed up? I mean, what's happening here? Firefighters. The warrant committee says that they thought that the 300,000, 200,000 of it, if it passes, would allow you to add 4 firefighters. Now, that's what they said, and you're saying, forget the additional 4 firefighters. If I don't get my 300,000, I have to cut 6 or 7 firefighters. Now, you should know better than they, because it's your department. I mean, it can't be both, I don't think. All right. Now, my understanding is the fire department works for the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen have any observations on this dilemma? That is, I still see half perplexed faces staring at me. The chairman of the Board of Selectmen does not have an answer at the moment. Now, while they're trying to figure out the answer, Ms. Koch, I'll tell you a joke. No, I'm not venturing there ever again. I've had too many bad comments to stay out of the fun business. Now, Ms. Coakley, are you going to speak to the pending motion?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. And while they're trying to figure out what the 317 means, I'm going to recognize you so that we can hopefully make some forward progress in recognizing people.
Okay. What I am doing is rising in support of the amendment proposed, that I believe is the amendment on the table.
Right.
To add back the
317-079, right. Okay.
And what I wanted to tell folks is that I went back to see how bad things were, and I took a look at the actual expenditures, because everybody has trouble with estimates. So I went back and looked at the actual expenditures back at the end of FY98, which is at the end of 30 June of 1998, for several of our departments. And I compared those actual expenditures, which I obtained from the annual report, with the current warrant request that is out there that is called the non-contingent appropriation for FY02. And I found some startling facts. The fire department's actual expenditures, and I excluded capital from every one of these departments. In the fire department's case, it wouldn't have made much difference, but I excluded it from everyone's. And the fire department's number in FY98, now don't get confused, I'm talking about the end of FY98, that's not the number in the warrant. The number in the warrant is 000102. I went back to FY98 and said, how much of an increase are we asking to go from 30 June 98 all the way up to the end of FY02? And I found that the fire department's expenditures were $2,995,000 in FY98, and that the number in the warrant that is being recommended to town meeting, not the amendment on the floor right now, would have that number change from it would go from 2,995 to 2,954. In fact, it would go down 41,000 or down 1%. So over these 4 years, lost 1%. So I said, well, let's see if that's the same thing happening to every other department. And what I sincerely believe as a taxpayer and as a town meeting member is that if we have a shortage and tight fiscal constraints, and before we lay off fire department and police personnel, we must expect that everyone else's budget for all the other departments is down to bare bones. So that's what I did. I said, okay, we're cutting the fire department 1% from what it was at the end of 98. Well, let's see. The selectmen's budget goes up 25% from the end of 98 to what is asked for in the warrant without an override. In other words, the non-contingent amount, a 25% increase, while our fire department, which is life, health, and safety, is down 1%. Okay, I look at public works and solid waste management, and I excluded from this curbside recycling, street lighting and traffic light expenses, and Chapter 90 expenses, just to normalize things. And if you look at the numbers, you'll see that the public works and solid waste, going to the non-contingent number, has a 33% increase, while the fire department is down 1%. So we have the selectmen up 25%. We have the public works and solid waste up a third. Then I went on to the school central administration, not the teachers for our children, the school central administration budget only. And that budget also is up 22% without the override. I looked at the cemetery, up 17%, while our fire department is going down 1%. I contend we'll have more people in the cemetery if we leave the fire budget where it is. And the library is up 14%, while our fire department is down 1%. Now, I'm not saying anything against any of these other departments. They're all important. But you don't propose to cut the fire department down to below safety until you had made similar severe cuts first in all the other departments. And instead, we heard some numbers being added today. We heard numbers being added today by the Warrant Committee with some extra money they found. Not $1 went to the fire department's line. It did go to the negotiations, the wage and salary increases for fire and police, but not one red cent, not one penny went to the fire department budget in Article 21. And at the same time that we are proposing, I guess if you looked at this, we asked ourselves, I don't think this is what we'd want to be known for in town meeting. I can't imagine any of us. We want our children protected. How can we say our children are protected if we don't have a fire department? If we've dropped the budget for them 1% over 4 years, while we've raised other people 33, 25, 22, 17, 14. So my contention is that we must raise the fire department budget, and my number, which I could propose afterwards, would be a little bit higher than the one on the table. What I would propose doing is increasing the fire department a bare minimum of at least 10% from FY 98. And that number would bring it up to $3,295 for the fire department. And that's just giving them a 10% increase over 4 years, while everybody else is getting a whole bunch of other increases. So, as I said in closing, I'd just like to say, everybody has a need for money. I'm not saying that each department can't look at their needs and get up here and tell us why they need it. But you have to start somewhere with priorities. And I believe the priorities have to go to life, safety, and health first. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Chief Larson, further explanation of the 317? You recognize.
I think the best figures that we have at this time is there would be at least 4 firefighter positions that would be lost if this override did fail and this money was not appropriated to the fire department. As I said before, any reduction in the manpower would probably result in an engine company being put out of service. The way the budget stands now, in order to keep the present complement in service, all 3 fire stations, you wouldn't have enough money to get to the end of the year. You'd be in month 8, month 9, and that would be all the money we had.
Okay. Is that okay? Thank you. Is the warrant committee satisfied that that's probably what's going to happen, based on your consultation? Get some comfort here.
I think that's basically the right idea. If this were to pass, we're looking at the addition of 4 firefighters. If this were to fail, you would lose a couple of firefighters, and as the chief has said, the staffing, and we agree, the staffing is so minimal that if you were to lose any more firefighters, you are facing...
eliminating a whole engine company.
Well, yes.
Okay. No, we need to know the brutal truth. Thank you. John Michael Shields, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. John Shields, Town Meeting Member from Precinct 2. Mr. Moderator, I see former Chairwoman of the Warrant Committee, Mary Fitzgerald, here, and I want to remind the Town Meeting that the Stabilization Fund was started in 1996 under Mrs. Fitzgerald's chairmanship. At that time, we established the fund with $500,000. Subsequent to that, under Article 2 of the year 2000 town meeting, we put another $200,000 into the stabilization fund, so that the principal presently in the stabilization fund is $700,000. Since that time, we've earned interest, Mr. Moderator, and the fund now holds $841,470.21, so that the interest earned is $141,470. I also served, Mr. Moderator, back in the mid-90s on the Fire Study Committee, the second Fire Study Committee that Mr. Grant referred to, and was involved in some of those debates during that time on the Engine 4 question. I'd like to remind the town meeting that at that time, the debate was basically on whether we would keep the station open or not. But the Fire Study Committee and the Board of Selectmen at that time never contemplated or was trying to keep the minimum manning levels at an amount that would be adequate to cover the town, even though we may not at that time be able to keep that station open. We were going to move those people to the central station, and as a matter of fact, that happened for a period of time. I rise in support of this article, Mr. Moderator.
The motion to amend, I assume.
This motion to amend.
Right. Okay.
I would offer, though, Mr. Moderator, knowing that this requires a 2/3 vote to touch the stabilization fund, that if this should go down and not get the 2/3 required, that a possible compromise might be to take the interest from the stabilization fund, the interest earned, which would also require a 2/3 vote, but that $141,000 in interest, if applied to this article, would put, for the purposes of this article, the fire department exposure in the override to the same dollar level as the police department. That may be a compromise that we should
All right, well, that's an alternative reality, and I'll entertain that motion after we work on this one. Is that all right?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
All right, doing one at a time. Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Tara Donner, Precinct 11. I have a question which I think can be answered by the Warrant Committee. If the operating override were to pass, would the $317,000 be added back to the stabilization fund?
Aha. No.
No. Not as this article is worded, no.
And in that case, is there a way to add an amendment so that that $317,000 could be added back to the stabilization fund in the operating override?
In order to do that, you would have to go out as a contingent appropriation for that amount, because otherwise it's not going to be a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So that if you then got it, you could put it somewhere. And I don't see how you can do that, frankly. Now, There'd be a few other people trying to think of how you could do that, but I don't see how you can do that. What you're faced with here, so you know what's going on, is what you have is a base budget and then additional amounts subject to a contingency. If you're going to take them out of the contingency, then they're part of the base budget. This one is seeking, following a suggestion by me, that you have additional credibility if you can tap some resource, and it wasn't unexpected that somebody would look at the stabilization fund. That, by the way, does require a 2/3 vote. So I just don't see how we can do what you want to do, but Mr. Pavlicek, you're recognized if you have further observations on the member's question.
I think in response to your question, what it would require would be a conditional appropriation to the stabilization fund under the stabilization fund article later in the warrant. I don't think you could do it off the top of my head through a recommendation on this article. It would mean amending this article and then later on amending a different article.
Thank you.
Now that sounds promising, but is there any amount in any place in this warrant that could be construed as that would put the town on notice of a potential contingency override and an appropriation to it?
You're right.
I don't think we...
Table 10 in the back of the warrant doesn't list a request for funds to the stabilization fund, anything near that size.
So we could do that, but except we can't do that because it's not in the warrant. So the answer is we can't do what you suggest, logical and all as it is. And if that changes after minds contemplate a wonderful suggestion, we'll let you know. Mary Fitzgerald, you're recognized.
Mary Fitzgerald, Precinct 4, the aforementioned referenced chairman of the Warrant Committee. And I rise in opposition to this amendment. And someone asked, what would it mean to the stabilization fund? In my opinion, it would mean a very dangerous precedent. As I look at the warrant that we have in front of us, I see a lot of departments that are in the same position as the fire department. And I don't know why it would make sense to do it for the fire department and not for the other departments that we feel are valuable. And where that leaves people like the building inspector or MEMA or those other people, that leaves them exactly nowhere because there's not enough in there to take care of all of our problems. The stabilization fund is just like everybody's savings, hopefully, you know, that you have in the bank. And when it generates interest, that's the whole point, to leave it in there to allow it to generate interest and allow that fund to build so that we will have something if the late 80s come back again. As Mr. Pavlicek mentioned, we had some really tough years ago where this kind of money would have made a big difference. I would not be in favor of taking any money out of the stabilization fund for any of the departments. I think we need to go out to an override to allow the people to have their say. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Agostino, you're recognized. Turn it on.
Diane Agostino, Precinct 8. We've been here many times before. For the new town meeting members, welcome to the major debate on public safety, the fire department. We've gone to the residents before. Everyone in this room agrees that the stabilization fund is essential. However, we just heard the numbers, $841,000. I asked the question, now we have an answer, and I'd like to make a friendly amendment if Mr. Grant, Firefighter Grant, will accept it. $841,000 in the stabilization fund. And I would amend it to read that the appropriation be made for $299,000 from the stabilization fund, leaving a balance of $542,000 in the stabilization fund. And from the answer we received that the balance come from Article 5, because if we don't lay off those firefighters, we would have $18,079. So it sounds like a small amount, but the difference to a bonding company between $841,000 in your stabilization fund and $542,000 in your stabilization fund is not a whole lot of money. I mean, we've come a long way from 1993, when I believe we had $86 in the stabilization fund. But we've also gone to the voters, and the voters have told us that they have priorities in life. And I'm asking this town meeting to also have priorities in life. And if it needs be that we go to the stabilization fund to support having the 3 fire stations open that the residents have passed numerous times, then I do support that. If it's not done through the stabilization fund, then I would support any additional motions made tonight. But I do ask the moderator if we can proceed with that amendment.
Now, exactly how do you wish to word it? Because Article 15's come and gone and been passed.
Oh, I'm well aware of that, as
Yeah,
I
okay.
waited
Well,
for
how
the
are you
answer.
planning on handling that?
So it would be an appropriation of $317,079 with $299,000 from the stabilization fund and $18,079 from Article 15.
You can't appropriate from another article. Sorry. I don't see how you're going to be able to do this unless you go back
And move to reopen.
and move to reopen that.
Then I would move to reopen Article 15
All
for
right, but
saving
that-
those positions.
All right, but that's not going to be taken right now, in that we have a pending motion to amend this article. But, Mr. Lovely, point of information.
Benefits was $18,000
Right.
per firefighter. I believe Mrs. Aguirre referred to one singular amount of $18,000.
I took the $317,079 that Jack Grant has requested and deducted the number that they gave me for how much the savings would be.
That's right.
So 4 times 18,000? Well, then we're getting real close to the number I'm looking at. If we moved from Article 15, does someone have a calculator to do that? 18,000?
No, wait a minute. We can't appropriate from Article 15, so we can't do that right now, Diane.
But if we move to reopen, we can.
When we get to the appropriate place where we can reopen, but that's not going to be in the middle of a pending motion.
Can we at least have those numbers so we'll know what we're discussing?
Well, somebody can multiply 4 times 18,079. Do we have a calculator down there? How much is it? It's approximately 72,000. So that's the order of magnitude.
Okay,
Okay.
so I just want to summarize that we'd only be looking at the stabilization fund then, when these numbers are finalized, for taking $245,000 approximately, $141,000, which was pointed out to be interest. And we can get to the bottom line of those numbers later. Thank you.
Okay. Now, it can be done later. I'm not shutting you off. It just can't be done right now. But everybody should understand, you could go back to Article 15, as Mrs. Agostino says, and reduce the appropriation there and go to the funding source of Article 15, as she suggested, and use that to make up the difference from the amount that you would take from the stabilization fund. That's the gist of what you're trying to do, Mrs. Agostino? That's correct. All right, everybody understand that? All right. Mr. Marash, another...
Marash, Precinct 2. For the record, a member of the Boston Fire Department, also a past member of the Milton Town Fire Study Committee. I would say the assumptions that we made and the conclusions that we arrived at from that study committee that recommended the town meeting to open Atherton Street and keep Atherton Street open now are more prevalent and more alarming than they were back in 1995. I give you the fact that we just put about 170 residential units up on 138. I'm not sure whether we want to go to the stabilization fund or take money from another department. I do support the fact that this fire department is grossly underfunded for what it needs to do. You can ask them, you can ask the firefighters that come into this town on a regular daily basis when needed to go and fight fires for our residents. It's not unlike other departments in this town, though. I think the real issue here is if we were to go and say, let's take $317,000 today, which we have a right to do, and take it and put it to the fire department or any other department that comes along in this budget, the question really becomes, what are we going to do tomorrow? What are we going to do next year and the year after that? I think that's the issue that Mr. Kaler raises. It's the issue that a lot of people really want to talk about when we get to the point of what are we going to recommend to the people of this town to decide what services they want to support in the town for the quality of life in this town. It's what we're all here for, I believe. And to do that, the sad fact is, whether we like it or not, there's not enough money in this town's budget that we currently get to fund the things that we all think are important. There's 279 of us. Any given time, there's 279 different opinions of what the heck we want to do in this town. Fire department, how do you argue against fire protection in this town? Or police protection? Or schools? Or any other department that comes up here? Or the elderly services that we provide to our senior citizens that have contributed a lifetime to this town? How do you pit one department against another? And rather than do that tonight, or the next 3 days, I would like to see us try to come together as a town. Lay out to our people that we represent that there are costs associated with our quality of life in this town. The fact that we don't have long lines of traffic to get home to because we don't have a big major shopping mall in town. That we have nice tree-lined streets. And yes, that we have 44% of this town is open space and 22% of it owned by the Metropolitan District Commission. That's the quality of life that we wanted to have when we moved here, or when our grandparents moved here, and we seem to be still living in this town because it is the town that they wanted to make for us. At this town meeting, we're going to put a thumbprint on what future this town will take. No matter what we decide, when we come out of here, I would hope that unlike some other town meetings in recent history, if we decide to do something, we all go out and work in this town for what we think's right. I've already heard a defeatist attitude running toward this town that, well, no matter what we decide, there's no way an override's going to pass. The hard things are always the best thing to do. And what's popular is not always right, and what's right is not always popular. That's why we're here, to make hard decisions. I support getting probably 20 firefighters on a regular daily shift in this town if you need them. Let's take a look at what the warrant committee does. But to come up here at the last minute after not going to any warrant committee meetings and start fudging this one, fudging that budget, I think it denigrates the work that those people in the front of this room have done for us, because they worked for us just like I, as a citizen, went and worked for this town on the Fire Town Study Committee. And we made recommendations. And it was not popular with the front of the room at the time, if I remember correctly. I believe the warrant committee opposed it. I believe the Board of Selectmen opposed it. But we fought in this town, and we worked hard to get that budget passed and that override passed out of town meeting. What are we afraid of? Are we afraid of the fact that what we feel, what we think this town should take as a direction is not the right course of action for this town? That people may have to sacrifice a little more? I don't want to pay any extra taxes. Heaven knows I've got a daughter going to college with no hope of ever seeing any financial aid. But I know I'm going to have to dig deeper. This town, this state, this country has all been about sacrifice and doing what's right for the way of life that we want. If that means finding more money for the fire department and the police department and the public works department and the school department and any other department that's in that budget, I suggest we decide what kind of town we want to live in, and then we go out and try to support that. And if it doesn't work out, then I guess we'll have to come up with another plan. But let's not just say, no, it can't be done before we even try to get it done. Thank you.
You're recognized.
Jeff Wilkinson, Precinct 11. I was also here for the debate, the fight on reopening Atherton Street Station. I live in that area. I voted against the recommendations of the Selectmen and the Warrant Committee at the time. I spoke on this floor in favor of opening Atherton Street. My support for the fire department goes back further than that. I spoke out and voted in favor of pay increases and various contract disputes that went back to 1990 when I first got on to town meeting.
And the fire department was not always quiet in those efforts, and I supported them. And I also strongly support the strongest possible fire protection for the town. I'm on the board for the Council on Aging. The Council on Aging budget is taking a bad hit with this warrant committee's recommendations, and I don't like it. It's woefully inadequate. I have 2 kids in the public schools, and the public school budget is woefully inadequate. My kids and I play in the parks, and the park budget is woefully inadequate. And you just go on down the line. This budget is woefully inadequate. So I think the solution here is not to get on the slippery slope of appropriating money for this emergency item, because then we're going to see every department come up and explain why that budget is inadequate and why it could cost lives or quality of lives. We can't go there. We have to get out and work for this contingent override that we have no choice but to pass. And I hope that the colleagues who were here on the curb last night supporting the firefighters' budget will come out and help us pass that override, because we need all that money in the budget for the firefighters and the rest of it.
Mr. McKettrick, you're recognized.
Joe McKettrick, Precinct 1, and I had the good fortune of serving the town as a member of the Board of Selectmen, but one piece of bad luck that I had was with 2 of my colleagues. We had to personally face this issue in the 1990s, where budget constraints on the town forced us to make a very painful decision to close Engine 4. And that was something that I really didn't feel very good about at the time, and I was extremely concerned for the period of time that the engine was closed down. And I think that since that time, although at that moment we did have a great deal of budgetary difficulty, we have an additional problem at this juncture, because there has been significant development in that part of the town, and it's even more of a problem if we go the route of shutting down Engine 4. Now, if we were to go ahead and to take money out of the stabilization fund, we would be able to put this problem off for a period of time. We'd be able to postpone it for another 12 months. But the difficulty here is that we need the money in order to make sure that the fire department can operate properly without going to the reserve fund or without relying on one-time money from a stabilization fund. We have to face up to the issue that we need heavier fire protection, and that we're going to have to explain this to our voters. And I think that there are a number of people in this auditorium who would be willing to go out and fight for the money at the ballot box to keep this station open. And I think that's true whether this is a standalone question or a unitary question or whatever the circumstances are. That in general, we just have to get real with some of these issues. We have to be square with our taxpayers, and we have to explain the needs of the town. That's what we're elected to do, and going after the stabilization fund is not the way to deal with this. The way to deal with it is to get proper permanent funding by building this into an override question. Thank you very much.
Okay. All right, we're going to
Mr. Moderator,
recognize those standing, then get the position of the warrant committee on the motion to amend. So that's going to be it. So, Mr. Livingston,
yeah, Mr.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Richard Livingston, Precinct 8. I appreciate all of the tours down memory lane that we've just had, but I think we should also remember in the short term, we had a young student at Curry College killed on the highway. We've had people in their homes, a public safety issue. It's about time that we realize that we have to, within our budget, we set up this stabilization fund several years ago, and we were told at that time it was for a rainy day. Well, we're in a hurricane, and we need public safety in this town, and it's about time we start to support it. I support the amendment, and I'd like to see the question moved.
Mrs. Augustino, and then this gentleman, and then Mr. Pavlicek, and then the position of the selectman.
Ben Salutis.
Okay, you're recognized. Go ahead.
Precinct 8. I've heard the story here before, and as a new town meeting member, but an old taxpayer of 40 years, I don't get much input from all my friends and other taxpayers that support the keeping of Atherton Street open. I have gone through the fire department reports in the weekly paper, and there hasn't been a notable fire for a long time. There's a lot of fire alarms. They do an excellent job on the rescue. I had advantage of them rescuing at my house. They're excellent. But there comes a point in which we don't have the money or the resources. And looking through reports here in the articles, it says an unusual high number of health issues and injuries. What kind of injuries are they getting laying in a fire station?
All right, quiet now. Listen. Everybody's entitled to.
And they overspent their budget by $225,000. Where'd that money go? I'd like some answers from the fire chief or the president here.
Okay. Mrs. Agostino, you're recognized.
The document that Ms. Coakley put together clearly addresses some of the hard facts that are being whited out by the comments that I'm listening to. The override to reopen Atherton occurred. The following year, the funds were removed from the fire department budget. For us to ask the firefighters to go out and promote another override so that the funds once again might be removed from their budget says that there's a question here as to what town meeting is saying and what the public is saying.
Wait a minute. Mr. Marash, wait. You're not recognized yet. This lady's going to finish, and then I'm going to recognize you. Finish, Mrs. Agostino.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I think that just exemplifies my point, though. The truth of the matter is the residents voted it. Town meeting has a history when we look at the votes of what passes through town meeting and then what the residents do. And we need to be more cognizant of that because time is running out. June 30th is going to be here soon. Should this override fail, what is our recourse? The question was asked previously. We had heard through the past few months that we were adding 4 firefighters. Tonight we just saw the Warrant Committee, the Chairman of the Board of Selectmen, and the Chief have a discussion, and the answer that came from the 3 of them was we would lose 4 firefighters. This makes it very difficult, even for town meeting members, to understand the facts. But we need to establish priorities. We like the libraries, we like the parks. You know, my grandparents are buried in the cemetery. What the residents at this town meeting are asking all town meeting members to do is consider priorities. I'd like to ask the moderator, I made an amendment, a motion to amend the current amendment as regards to where the funds would come from. So I need a point of clarification. You explained to me that we can't go back and open Article 50.
Yeah, I didn't take that as a motion that was seconded, so I did not, and I would have ruled it out of order in that the articulation of where you were getting it would not be in order. So we are still working on the Mr. Grant's motion. You want to know where we are.
So how can I word it so that it would be in order?
I don't think you can at this time, is what I told you. But I mean, that's just my opinion.
And what's the reason? If you can give me a reason, I don't understand if the funds...
Because you can't appropriate from another article. That's just not a motion that's recognized.
But if Jack Grant withdrew his article temporarily, and then I made a motion to reopen Article 15, then his amendment wouldn't take precedent?
No, we're not going to reopen. We're not going to get to opening that article till we finish with the article that we're on. But when we finish with the article that we're on, we can entertain a motion to go back to that article And you can amend that down. That would then free up the funding sources under Article 15. Okay? So you'd have extra money, which you can do with whatever you want.
But I specifically want, and if you can advise me how to get what I want, I specifically want to reduce the amount that is removed from the stabilization fund, and there's got to be a mechanism to doing that.
Well, if there is, I can't think of it, which is what I told you before. And I'm sorry. I mean, if somebody else can think of how we can do this, I'm more than happy to entertain it. But I just don't see how we can do it at the present time.
Can you check with town council? I'd appreciate
Sure.
it.
Do you have any suggestions, Mr. Flynn? Yes or no? Oh, hang on. I will confer.
And then add it later? Good idea. Thank you. That's a good idea. Jack?
Mrs. Agostino, I have been missing perhaps the obvious, which I thought was obvious and I didn't think had to be articulated. The fact of the matter is, you don't have to have this balanced, okay? You can appropriate $299 out of the stabilization fund, which means that for the present, this would be underfunded by the, if you went on your figure, the additional $18,000. And you can leave it out there unfunded. Remember, I said I didn't mandate, because I can't mandate where it's going to come from. But if that worked, there would be $18,000 that we know we would be out of using that figure. Now, that puts aside the additional problem of how many firefighters, in fact, would be laid off and how much savings, in fact, there would be under Article 15, keeping in mind the still somewhat perplexing understanding of the facts that the $300,000 was designed to add 4 firefighters. So if you are, in fact, going to add that back to the budget, it sounds to me like you'd have to understand exactly what the premise and assumption was as to how many were going to be laid off in terms of the funding of Article 15, none of which information is clear to me, and therefore I am assuming, maybe wrongly, that it's not clear to the members. So that's how it could be done, because then you could later go back, you could reduce the appropriation by $18,000, if in fact you got it reopened, which would also take a 2/3 vote, and then you could take that additional amount from whatever funding source it came from and use that to further amend this article to add it back in. And for the sake of $18,000, I'm not sure that's worth it, but you're more than welcome to go that route if you consider it important enough for this town meeting to do that.
Thank you. Someone back here actually explained that to me at the same time. And the number, though, would be $72,000. So the friendly amendment would be to only take $245,079. Remember, Mr. Lovely told me it was $18,000 per firefighter?
Mr. Lovely didn't say that. He just reminded us. Yeah, hang on now, let's not get testy. He was just reiterating, Mr. Lovely, what came from the Warrant Committee. Okay? Okay. All right, now, the question is Mr. Grant at this hour going to amend his pending motion, which I will accept if you want to do that?
At this time, I will accept that amendment.
All right, and what is it? I usually, this is getting substantive, so it perhaps should be in writing. What exactly is your amendment now?
If the numbers are correct and the Warrant Committee information regarding how much we will need or we will save, that we will actually save $72,000 from Article 15, then the new number to be voted to move out of the contingent appropriation over to the non-contingent appropriation would be $245,079. Is that right?
Is that what you wish to be your motion, Mr. Grant?
That's correct.
All right. So, as I understand it then, the motion is to move from the contingent appropriation 317,079 over to the non-contingent appropriation, and that to meet said appropriation, 245,079 is to be taken from the stabilization fund. I'll take that as a friendly amendment. But Mr. Mullen, at some point, we don't want any, says he doesn't want any problems, so Mr. Grant, I'm going to charge you with putting that in writing, okay? As is required. Can you do that?
I accept that.
All right, good. It won't be a problem, and I'll help you with it if it is. Now, this is it. Marash, position of the Warrant Committee, position of the Board of Selectmen, vote requires a 2/3 vote. And that's it. Marash next.
Mr. Moderator, Steve Morash from Precinct 2.
You're recognized.
I rise for a point of order.
Okay.
Gentlewoman from Precinct 8 said that the funds for Atherton Street had been removed after we fought on this floor and in committee and out in the street to keep Atherton Street open. Am I missing something, or is the Atherton Street Fire Station and Engine 4 still open? Therefore, how could the funds be removed? Once again, it seems as though someone is misspeaking here, and I'd like to know if the funds have been removed, why have they been removed, and if they have not been removed, is the Atherton Street Fire Station still open? I believe I was at it just last weekend watching the 100th anniversary of said Atherton Street Fire Station.
I heard the comment. Obviously, the funds have not been removed the next year, as the member said.
So the Atherton Street Fire Station...
Yeah, and I assure you the Atherton Street Station, as we sit or stand, in my case, here tonight, is still open.
So that was a misstatement, then, by someone in this...
Well, I'm not going to characterize anything. I just want to assure everybody that it's open.
I would also point out that while I still stand by my previous statement, that the fire department in this town is still underfunded for what it needs to do to give fire protection services to this town, and we'll fight again to get as much of that funding as we can. Last year, in the fiscal 01 budget, it went out of town meeting at $2,930,855, which is definitely less than the $3,163,949 appropriated in fiscal 00. However, I would point people's attention to an article that we just passed not long ago, adding to that budget $234,000, which equals pretty much the previous FY 00 budget. So if someone is trying to say we are underfunding, or at least cutting the funding of the fire department, I believe that also might be a misstatement. This town does fund the fire department. We need to fund it more. Thank you, sir.
All right, I have a dilemma, all right? Now, okay. I see Mrs. Agostino, despite my fact that I said I was only going to recognize...
Point of order.
Well, it's not a point of order, actually. It's not. Okay, you want to say more.
No, I'm asking a question.
Now, hang on. Will you let me finish, please? I'm the moderator, okay? I get to
know
finish,
that.
And in all due respect, then I get to recognize you, and then you get to speak, all right? And that's the way it's going to be. Now, what I'm going to do, okay, is allow a little leeway here. Now, we have Mr. Mason. Who else is standing at the mic back there? Marash, you're done. Sit down. Okay? Now, this is it. Okay? This is it. I am going, and there's going to be no deviation. I'm recognizing Mrs. Agostino in fairness to explain whatever she wants to explain. It's not a point of order. She gets to talk again. I'm going to recognize her. And then I'm going to recognize Mr. Mason, who we all know is a firefighter, and we want to hear from him. But that's it, because we have now heard as much as I want to hear, and under the rules of the meeting, I get to bring it to a vote, if you recall the introductory remarks, as we all learn together what the procedure is. Then I'm going to hear from the Warrant Committee, then I'm going to hear from the Board of Selectmen, and then we're going to vote. Okay? That's it. Don't anybody climb to a microphone, because I'm not going to recognize you. Mrs. Agostino, you are recognized by the moderator. Go ahead.
Diane Agostino, Precinct 8, and it is a point of order that I wish to make. When I was standing here, the moderator stated that only those standing would be recognized. I began to speak, and I was interrupted. and I appreciate that you took care of that interruption. But my point of order, I don't believe you can answer it now because I don't want to get into an explanation of it now. But as the moderator, you just made the statement that the money was not removed from the fire department. You reiterated the statement of the town meeting member. So not for this evening, but I do believe the public has a right, and it's a point of order that as the moderator, if you're making a statement, I believe they want to know what's right. If the fire chief could please report back on that at our next meeting, which is supposed to be next week.
Report back on what, Mrs. Agostino?
That the funding of the override was reduced from that budget.
That was reduced from what budget?
The fire department budget.
For this year?
Not this year. Shortly after the override vote for Atherton Street Fire Station.
What do you wish verified? Shortly after the override went out for the Atherton Street, you are saying that what happened that you wish to have verified?
The following year.
The following year.
A major cut, I believe, although I don't have the annual report in front of me, I believe the point was $175,000 reduced in that budget.
That there was a cut in the budget?
Of $175,000.
Okay. Well, what the other member was saying is that you were suggesting that there was a cut with respect to keeping Atherton open, which was not accurate, and it may well be accurate that there was a cut because I don't remember.
Okay, but you did just make the statement as the moderator that there was no such cut. So I think
no, I didn't make a statement that the budget wasn't cut. I simply said that there was not a cut out of the Atherton Street fire station because it was obvious that the Atherton Street fire station is still open. That was the only point I was making. Is that clear to you now?
That is, but I would appreciate clarification from the fire chief before the end of this town meeting for the residents. Thank you.
Mr. Mason, you're recognized. Thank you, Mrs. Agostino.
Robert Mason, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 8. The next year after the override for Engine 4, there was a substantial amount of money removed from the fire department budget that was allocated for building repairs, but it was most definitely removed. And that was what the taxpayers voted for to be in the fire department budget.
All right, I will take that as the clarification that Mrs. Agostino sought. Okay, now, Mr. Pavlicek, we wish to have the... wait a minute, excuse me. We're going to get the position of the Board of Selectmen on the pending motion to amend the recommendation of the Warrant Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a position for a majority of the Board of Selectmen. And the majority of the Board of Selectmen would oppose this amendment for the following reasons. First and foremost, we're deeply concerned that what we're trying to do here is pull out a credit card and charge something for 1 year that is not going to be there next year. We want to reliably fund this department, and the only way to properly do that is to get ongoing taxpayer support. Unfortunately, that means an override. This is a budget that has been chronically underfunded, and we have had to, as a town meeting, appropriate significant supplementary funds for several years now. We would like to see that stop. We want to fully fund this budget. We also have a problem with the iniquity of this amendment. We see an equal problem in public safety in other departments, specifically the police department, where we're also going to be facing layoffs. And we don't think it's right to fund one department in this method and leave another department or departments to seek their funding in an override and orphan those efforts. We think this should be a collective effort. We think that it's a poor choice to find the funding for this in the stabilization fund. The focus of the discussion this evening on the stabilization fund, specifically from the Warrant Committee and from Mary Fitzgerald, has been that the existence of a stabilization fund strengthens the town's financial position, and that a diminution of the stabilization fund would weaken the town's financial position. I would add to that what would truly weaken the town's financial position vis-a-vis a stabilization fund is the use of this one-time money to fund an operating budget for 1 year. That is a very bad financial practice. We feel that the voters did speak on Atherton Street on Engine 4 and voted a discrete amount of money to keep it open, and an amount which has been increased by 2.5% a year. So it was voted in 95, and our ability to increase those taxes has grown by 2.5% every year. And in my opinion, and I served on the warrant committee for 5 years, that amount of money did in fact remain in the fire department operating budget for personnel services. Unfortunately, that amount of money has proven inadequate. It has been outstripped by inflation and by, among other things, collective bargaining agreements. If you give your bargaining unit 3% raises, as has been the practice of the town, and you're only able to increase your tax revenue available to fund those raises by 2.5%, you have a diminishing return. And that's been a phenomenon that has been occurring for some years now. Please don't mistake me. This is an inadequate budget. This is a public safety concern. We do not want to lose an engine company, and we do not want to close a fire station. What we do want is to fully fund the fire budget with increased size companies of 14 men and women instead of the current 13, which make it easier to keep the 11-person minimum manning level in place on straight time, diminish the overtime burden that the department has faced and placed on town meeting for some years now, and add to the flexibility of the chief and his deputies in fully manning each engine on each shift. But for this, we believe we need an operating override.
Thank you, Mr. McCarthy. Mr. Pavlicek.
Well, the chairman of the Board of Selectmen could easily have just given my speech. Working through this, I can pick apart various different things in here, you know, on this sheet showing the spending over the years. The most important thing it shows is the extent to which we've underfunded the fire budget over the years. The expenditures that you see in the fiscal 98 column are, in fact, in that column, some $150,000 over budget for 1998. We're comparing them to fiscal 02 appropriations, and without an override, fiscal 02 appropriations are inadequate, and we're going to have additional funding to do it, just as we did tonight. The fire department has been backwards funded for many years. It has not had enough money in its budget. We've been trying to man these stations all the time, and we're trying to man them with 13 firefighters on a shift, and there has not been enough money in the budget to do it. This is not decreasing the way that these numbers show, because you're comparing apples and oranges. You're comparing, in the 1998 case, the money after all the extra money has been padded on at the end, versus in the current case, the money that's being appropriated, which is a different item entirely in the fire department especially. And on some of the other lines, we can go through it as well. Public Works and Solid Waste Management, one only has to look at MWRA assessments over time to see why that one grows. And you can go through any of these. The cemetery department, where they're a revenue and producing department, has different reasons for its size growing. But that's not the point. The point is that these budgets are underfunded in this base non-contingent appropriation. All of them. The fire department's underfunded, the police department is underfunded, the council on aging is underfunded. You can go right down the line. We're going to hear from many departments before this town meeting is over about how in the non-contingent appropriation, the non-override case, their departments are underfunded, and it is a fact. We do not have enough money as a town to support all of these departments to the way we want to support them. And it's not fair from our perspective as a warrant committee to single out individual departments and say, well, you're exempt from this, everyone else is going to have to find their way through. And as much as we would all like, I live in Precinct 11. I remember the Atherton Street Fire Station being closed. It is the fire station that's going to respond to my house if there's something wrong at my house. I don't want to see that closed any more than anyone else does. But the fact is, we don't have money to put in any one budget to save one budget at the expense of all the others. And as far as going for the stabilization fund is, I restate what we said before. I cannot overstate our opposition to going after the stabilization fund, especially for a recurring problem. This is a problem that has been going on for years and years. Taking money out of the stabilization fund to buy us one more year is just buying us trouble next annual town meeting, even more trouble than we have right now. So if there's a reason to go to a stabilization fund, I don't see it in this budget. I certainly don't see it in this amendment. I think those are the important points here. I just want to reiterate again, with regard to the stabilization fund, any diminution in the stabilization fund that could possibly have any effect on bond ratings, basis points that we pay on bonds, with $100 million in bonding coming up, 10 basis points on a loan. We're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars over the life of the loan. This is very precarious position to be going into for any reason, especially for operating costs. The Warrant Committee absolutely does not support this.
Okay, now here's where we are. We're moving to amend the recommendation of the Warrant Committee, and the motion is this, and Mr. Grant, listen up, okay? It's to increase the non-contingent appropriation for fire by increasing salary and wages by $303,000 and general expenses by $14,079. So the total non-contingent appropriation for fire is $3,271,548, and delete the contingent appropriation of $317,079 for fire, and to meet said appropriation, the sum of $245,079 shall be taken from the stabilization fund. Is that okay by you, Mr. Grant? Where's Mr. Grant? Yes, it is. Okay. All right. Now, it requires a two-thirds vote. And if you're voting aye, you're voting to, for this amendment, which will amend the recommendation of the Warrant Committee. So all in favor of amending the recommendation of the Warrant Committee as set forth in the motion that I just read, say aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. One, two, three, four. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so I haven't even declared, and 7 people are questioning. So that means if I declare that this passed, they'd want a roll call vote since they're standing, I assume. Okay? So standing vote. All right, so we're going to go to a standing vote. The tellers on this side are going to, if they're still here, yeah, Ginny Hannigan, please. Paul Kelly. Center section, the left section here to my left includes the selectmen's table as well as the stage. Marita Cronin and Ann White in the middle. Frank Giuliano and John Kiernan for the right-hand section. Now, we're going to do this as quickly as possible, which means if you're a town meeting member, get in a seat. Do not be standing in the aisle. And Mr. Giuliano, you're going to count the Warrant Committee table, okay? Now, all in favor, all the ayes, stand up. And stay where you are. Don't wander around. Okay? Just stay right where you are so we can get a verified double count. Is everybody in a seat? That's a member? Get in a seat. You got to be a town meeting member to be standing. Are we okay in the center? Ginny, you left, okay? Frank, you're set. All right, all ayes down, all nays up. Are you done on the nose? John, you done on the nose too? Done on the nose, okay.
I got 75.
Stay where you are. Don't move a muscle. Okay. I can do that. Ginny? Okay. Center section? Ian White? Marita? All right, wait a minute. Ready? All right, everybody down. All right, section one, Ginny. Ayes first. Nays. Center section, Ann White. Nays. Third section, Mr. Kieran. Those are ayes. Nays. 35. Okay. I don't know what they total, but it's not 2/3 in favor, so the motion goes down. Somebody wanted to repeat it. There were 19, 14, and 35, and that's 9 and 4, 13, 18, 2, 3, 68 ayes, 9, 12, 159 nays. So that goes down. So we're back on the main motion. Does anyone else wish to address Article 21.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. In the beginning of the evening, everyone was talking about the budget format that we have here, the appropriation and then the contingent appropriation. And what I'd like to do, Mr. Moderator, is, and I'm used to this, and a lot of people here are saying this is new and they don't understand it. It's hard to figure out what are we voting for, what's the bottom line. But in the school department, they have A budget and B budget, then they come back with C budget. So I understand what this is, appropriation and then contingent appropriation or non-contingent. I'd like to make a motion. One, that all votes be recorded as separated, for and against the appropriation, and two, for and against the contingent appropriation. You were asking earlier this evening how we could let the citizenry of the town know the position of the town meeting when it comes to their position on voting for an override. Well, one way to do that, Mr. Moderator, is that if we vote for the appropriation as it stands, and/or we vote for the non-contingent, it would show how many people in the town meeting support the operating budget and how many people in the town meeting support the contingent, meaning support an override. So right now, by being able to divide the vote on this particular article in the future articles that are appropriation, we vote on the appropriation as it stands from the Warrant Committee. And then we vote on the contingent as we feel it should go to the general public for an override. So I make that motion that the vote be separated.
You know, that really is not going to do what you said it's going to do, you know.
I don't see how you feel it wouldn't. If you could explain to me. If
Well,
we're going to vote on the appropriation, go right down
You're trying
and
to
vote.
get some sense of what the other members suggest, Mr. Kaler suggested, as to who wants a menu and who doesn't? That's not going to tell you that.
No, I'm not interested in a menu. What I'm interested in is the point of the matter is that I ran for public office in the town, and the people of the town wanted, 1,700 people felt there should be an audit, and they do not want an override. They do not want an override, Mr. Moderator. But we're voting on a contingent budget to send to the people for an override. We should have the intestinal fortitude to come here as representatives of the people of this town and take the position that they have asked us to take. And what we want to do, what I want to do, is make that position clear. Am I going to support the appropriation as it has been set forth by the warrant? Yes, I am. Am I going to support a contingent budget going out to the people? No, I will not. Nobody else has to feel the same way, but I think that the people of the town meeting, the people of the town, should know the position of their representatives here at this town meeting on this budget, as it is set by the Warrant Committee and the contingent. So I make the motion. It has been seconded.
And what exactly, and would you articulate? Mark Jeffries, what's your point of order?
We already voted on the
yes,
motion.
Yes, you can. We haven't voted on it. And we were in the middle of voting on it. But you're not amending the you're actually got a procedural motion where you wish to have the vote divided so that there are two votes.
Absolutely, sir.
Okay? So one is a vote on the non-contingent appropriation, and one is a vote on the contingent appropriation.
Yes, sir.
Okay? Now,
I have a copy of it for you.
All right. I'd like to see how it's written. Is somebody... Now, don't go away in case when I read this I'm mystified. That all votes, but we're going to do it on this article. We're not going to take a procedure on all articles. So I'll entertain this motion for this article. That the vote, and you don't want to, it's not how it's recorded, it's how it's taken, I assume, is what... Mr. Livingston, I'm trying to talk to you to find out if I can get a sensible motion out of what you handed me. What your motion says that all votes be recorded as separate, whereas that's not going to get you there unless you have a motion that I take the vote separately. Is that what you're trying to do? So this written motion you're giving me doesn't do that. Now, do you want to try again, or do you want me to take a whack at it? Huh?
I'd appreciate your
All right, so you move that the vote on Article 21 be taken in two parts. First, a vote on the non-contingent recommended appropriations, and a second vote on the contingent appropriations. Is that what you want?
Yes, sir.
That is, yes?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Yes, it was.
Who second? All right. Ms. Coakley, do you wish to speak to the pending motion?
Not that motion that was just made.
All right.
The
All
Article
right.
21.
Well, then I'm going to have to ask you to wait. Does anybody want to speak to this? Otherwise, we'll go to a vote.
Mr. Moderator,
Yeah, you're recognized.
Ann Palmer, Precinct 7.
Ann Palmer.
I urge that we vote against this amendment because we vote as a body, and the ultimate vote is public, and then regardless of how we voted here, should it come to an override, we go out individually and do whatever we want to do as far as other things like the override are concerned. And in addition, this would consume an inordinate amount of time, I'm sure. Thank you.
Okay, now, Mr. Livingston, are you standing there because you want to be recognized again on your own motion?
To speak to the motion, yes,
All
sir.
right, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Town meeting members, citizens of Milton, the reason I bring this motion forward is we have an appropriation. We've heard about all the hard work of the Warrant Committee and what it has done and the months that they've spent in putting together an appropriation. We then also see that they've added to it a non-contingent, which would mean it would have to go to the community for an override. For those of you, I feel personally that when you're voting, you vote on your merits of the article, and that's a la carte. And to throw in everything, including like in the plumbing thing, we added 20,821, that's a kitchen sink. And that's how we're voting. We're voting on what is an appropriation and what may or may not be an appropriation. And I feel that it would be appropriate for this body to vote separately on the budget that is going to be presented to the taxpayers to have to pay, and then have the town meeting vote on a budget that would be. So I ask for your support that these be voted separately.
Anyone else wish to speak? Although the motion is that the vote on Article 21 be taken in two parts. First, a vote on the non-contingent recommendation, and a second vote on the contingent appropriation. All those in favor of the motion to amend, say aye. Those opposed? No. Rejected. All right. Anyone else wish to speak to Article 21? Ms. Coakley.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Ellen Coakley, Precinct 10. I would like to move the following, I guess that's the right, I would like to move the following amendment to Article 21. And in the interest of time, I'd like to abbreviate this, in the interest of time, I'd like to try to abbreviate these words. What I'd like to do is move the amendment would be to move the 317,000, et cetera, back into the non-contingent appropriation, but not to take it from the stabilization fund. And I have looked at proposed places from which to take it, and I would be glad to make those recommendations. And I would also welcome alternative recommendations of where to take it. My point being that when we send this to the citizens, I don't think we want to show people that we're not, as town meeting members, we don't think we need to fund the fire department to a crucial minimum level. So I'm proposing that we take the funds from other departments, which I'd be glad to identify, and I can even give it to you in writing, Mr. Moderator. And what I would propose we do with those other departments is not take it away, but move their money from the non-contingent to the contingent. I'd rather see I think it would make much more sense for the voters to be voting additional money for some of the other departments who are already seeing some relative increases, whereas the fire department that is in such critical shape. So I would like to propose that we not change anybody's money in total, but move it from the non-contingent column to the contingent liability column for other departments to offset what I'd like to move back to the fire department. And I don't know if you want me to proceed with that now.
Ms. Coakley, it's not what I want. It's whatever you want. You're a town meeting member, and you can do what you want.
No, my concern is the hour.
And I'm concerned, too.
Well, that's my only concern about talking to you about it now. Do you want me to go into that now?
I do not have a want on the subject. I am only the moderator.
Okay.
And you can either do it, or you cannot do it, or, since this looks like it's going to get a little complicated, okay? In other words, I will venture, which I shouldn't, that if I was standing in your shoes, I would move to adjourn and ask me if I would recognize you first thing on Monday so you can do this.
That's what I would like to do.
Because I think, you know, if I was in those shoes, I would think that what I'm about to do, that a lot of people might get very impatient, and it might not be as powerful as if you did it next Monday.
Yes, that's exactly what
So
I would like
will
to do.
entertain your motion to adjourn. Is there a second? We're adjourned. Now, Ms. I know it's not Ms. Hang on, Ms. Donahue, whoever. At the beginning of the next meeting, Patrick Donahue did die. He was a town meeting member, and I'm not going to do this now. But at the beginning of the next town meeting, which is next Monday at 7:30. Everybody understand? We're not going Thursday. We're going next Monday. First thing I'm going to do is have another moment of silence of a town meeting member who died. He wasn't last year, but he was a long-serving, and I forgot to do that earlier. And then I may be reminded Ms. Coakley has the promise of the moderator to be recognized under Article 21 first.